Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to the show. Hi, my name is Jeff Gerstmann. You're in the zone right now. It is December 17th, 2024. I hope if you are planning to do any shopping for the holidays, I hope you're done. I don't know. I've been ordering stuff. I've been getting a bunch of. I'm getting it in waves. I decided one night to order a bunch of weird garbage for the kids off of AliExpress. I was like, yes, let's get a bunch of weird bootleg trash sent to the house that the kids can play with. And some of that has been showing up, and it's like little like stocking stuffery type stuff. Just nothing too weird. It's like a hat. It's a like little kind of knick-knacky sort of things. My son, this year decided that he understood what the holidays were all about, and he has been asking me for a thing over and over and over again. He's gotten into this. It's a Spider-Man show for kids. It's like Kid Spider-Man, and there's 3 of them, and they're a squad of Spider-Mans. And so it's like Spider-Man 2, but with a third one, and it's a ghost spider, and she's a girl. They make books and stuff. So I know he got a book from the library about it, and then, we discovered that there was a TV show, and I was like, okay, check this out. And in the TV show, they have a robot spider that they will order around, and it'll crawl around and do stuff. And so he came to me with this very specific request of like, I want this spider robot from this thing. I'm like, oh, okay. Do they make that? We'll look it up. And sure enough, they do. It's the problem was sometimes they're getting into shows that are no longer on the air, and finding, so like my son earlier this year was deep into the Magic School Bus. Both of them, they did a remake of it a few years back, and it's good. It's good. The remake of it is extremely well done. I was too old for both of them, so it's just like, whatever. But having watched both of them, like, yeah, these are nice. These are, compared to the average trash on there. But like, they have not been making new episodes of that thing for even the reboot is like a few years gone. I think, around the kind of start of the pandemic, they were making like some movie length things for that. And then that fell off, and it's just gone now. But also, they just never properly monetized the Magic School Bus. I think the original show was it was a PBS show originally, wasn't it? I have no idea. I think it was. I'm guessing. And so, like there a lot of that stuff just kind of doesn't. So a lot of these shows kind of fall through the cracks without a bunch of like merchandise and garbage and then on one hand, that's admirable, right? You're like, oh, yes, nice. But also, the kids want stuff from these shows that they like. And so when you're just like, yeah, I don't know, they got way into something called Gabby's Dollhouse. And I don't know, did they make any? Oh, turns out they did. Turns out you can get Gabby's Dollhouse ears shipped to you from China for like $4 a fucking piece. I'm sure they're extremely official, but you can't find a lot of that other stuff, anyway. So it's been an interesting thing of like piecing together, like their likes, their media habits are super weird. And I don't know what other kid, I don't hang out with other kids enough to know what the fuck they're into. So I assume that other kids are into whatever is happening right now. When they were younger, when my oldest was more like 3 years old, all the parents were watching Cocomelon. And Cocomelon is an abomination. Cocomelon is like a terrifying thing. And I don't hear much about that anymore. I don't know if it's like still on, but like Cocomelon is like made by robots, man. Like before all the LLMs came in and started shitting everything up, there was Cocomelon. And there's a repetition and a frightening. Cocomelon feels very much like it is made by an algorithm. It feels like it's made by some really intense, like very sticky algorithm that is just like, yes, we're gonna figure out a way to get these kids to watch this stuff forever. I don't really see Cocomelon on store shelves anymore. There was a window there where there were toys and stuff, and that stuff seems like it's mostly gone now. So maybe we're on the other end of the Cocomelon stuff, but that stuff was really terrifying. So, you know, like all the other like parents we would run into seemed like they were just plopping their kids down in front of fucking Cocomelon, and it is super hellish. You should check it out sometime. You should go watch, like, but you have to, like, to really understand Cocomelon, I think you have to watch like 4 or 5 of them in a row, because that's when you realize, like, oh, they have taken the same exact song and written 5 different sets of lyrics to it. And so they're drilling these melodies into the kids' heads. But like this one is about getting clean in the bathtub, and this one is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. You know, like it's really, it's nuts, man. It's really nuts. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and get more into the Cocomelon. We'll get more into the depths of this foul. We'll be right back. Things just get nuts around the holidays. You know, you've got a billion different things going on. You know, you're like getting off work and then running to the store, but that's what everyone else is doing. So every trip to the store takes like 5 times as long. I don't have time for it. You know, kids got to get picked up from school. Things got to happen. And, you know, sometimes you drop a meal or something just to try to get things done. You don't have to do it. Factor is here with easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing things up, Factor has you covered with 35 different delicious meals every week and over 60 additional convenience options you can add to your box, like keto, cookies, and pressed juices and smoothies. Don't let these shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. It's Factor. Factor's meals are chef-prepared and dietitian-approved. You're not only going to love how Factor's meals taste, but also how they support your goals. And hey, you know, it's cheaper than takeout and dining out. So, you know, you can save a little money. That's, you know, in the holidays, saving a little money to, you know, let you spend a little bit more on gifts and what have you. That's ultimately what it's all about. You can find guilt-free comfort foods like home-style chicken and gravy, you know, loaded mashed potato pork chops, or like feel-good vegan options like sweet potato and chickpea curry. And they've got, you know, flavors from around the globe like Peruvian shrimp and red pepper cauli grits. You don't have to sacrifice quality for convenience with Factor. These weekly meals offer ways to treat yourself to a restaurant-like meal experience with gourmet plus dishes that feature premium proteins and seasonal sides like broccolini, leeks, and asparagus. How does truffle butter filet mignon or garlic herb roasted barramundi sound? Mouthwatering, right? Stay on your A game with quality ingredients you can trust and quality you can taste in every one of Factor's fresh, never frozen meals. Use your time more efficiently. These things are easy to make, you know, not a lot of prep. You get them out of the fridge, you make them happen. These add-ons, I was a big fan of these pressed juices. They'll send you some juice. You want to get a little more juice in your life? You want to juice up? Head to factormeals.com/50jeffg and use the code 50jeffg to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's the code 50jeffg at factormeals.com/50jeffg to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. All right, so Cocomelon. Let's really get into it. No, I don't know. It's compared to a lot of the other stuff. So that our like rebuttal to all of these kids getting into Cocomelon was we started watching a lot of Mr. Rogers around the house, and but you know, as the kids have grown up a little bit, they've kind of got into a handful of different shows and bounced between a lot of this stuff, and it's been interesting to watch their tastes change, and the things that they gravitate towards. And you know, yeah, like my boy's into this like kid Spider-Man thing right now, and you know, my daughter's watching something called Fancy Nancy. Oh, a lot of it happens because of the library. Going to the library and getting, you know, books out of the kids section, and then discovering like, oh, these books were all, in fact, a lot of these books are rewritten, simplified episodes of a television show. And so Fancy Nancy started out as books, and then it became a show, and then they started making books out of episodes of the TV show, which is maybe a nightmare in a weird way. I will say that the books that are based on the TV show are way worse. Like they are not written nearly as well as the books that you can tell, because the art style is totally different, all this other stuff, that like when they were just making the books. And some of that is because it's, you know, we're getting like these like easy reader, because my daughter's starting to read more and more, and so she's, you know, some of them are deliberately skewed down to simple words, and easy to read phrases, and then Fancy Nancy. There's a lot of goddamn French words in my Fancy Nancy. I don't know how I feel about that. Got my daughter walking around saying "s'il vous plaît" and "oui." Like, what the fuck, man? Thought this was fucking America. Shit. And so yeah, it's been weird. She's been learning little bits of French as she goes. But yeah, I don't know. That's so they both have like, you know, things that they want for the holidays. And you know, my daughter had been pretty like hands off about it and just kind of like, you know, ambivalent. And then the other day I'm putting her to bed, and she hits me with do you know what I want? I was like, no, what? She's like, I want 5 things. And then by the time she got to like the 5th thing, she's like, actually, I want 6 things, and had run down this like full list. And I was like, yes, that's how we do it. That's how we consume. let's desire things. Come on. So yeah, I don't know. I'm in the middle of, I like I said, I got a bunch of knickknacks and small things, but there's a few other things that need to happen before too long here, in terms of finishing off gift buying and all of that other stuff. Speaking of gifts, Virtua Fighter 5 is coming to the PC pretty soon here. They ran an open beta. I don't know if it might still be on today, because they said it was going to be up for 5 days. So that'd be Thursday night. So that'd be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This might be the last day of their open beta. And yeah, I don't know. They're putting Virtua Fighter 5 out on the PC. You know, they've made some balance changes that also went back into that PS4 version that they did a while ago. And they're also adding rollback netcode to the game. It's great to get some Virtua Fighter in again. Because it's been a little while. The VF5 on the PS4, it's like a really good version of the game. But like the player base kind of dropped off. Like you kind of need like a flow of new releases or whatever. I'm sure that this balance update and whatever else will probably bring players back to that PlayStation version. But it coming to the PC is also like a really nice thing. The menus and everything look exactly like that PS4 version of the game. It's not some big expanded, you know, you're not going to find some insane deep single player mode or whatever. They're making a version of VF5 with, you know, it's got the arcade mode, it's got a training, you know, it's got the basics you would need to play like competitive VF. And it's like, you know, I think they're going to charge like $17 for it or something like that. It's not like they're looking to make a full priced product out of this either. And so I've been playing that off and on. The netcode feels really good, and I had a couple though that went super bad. That's the nature of the internet, right? Is sometimes stuff runs bad. But I had one match where it was like 65 frames of rollback or something, and so the fight just kept rewinding. I just kept mashing the buttons and I won. And then did not rematch with that player because that player couldn't even maintain 60 frames a second. It was like, Jesus, what are we doing? And it's nice that it tells you that. It's like, hey, by the way, the person you're playing against has dropped to like 51 frames a second. And also the ping just shot up to this and the rollback is this. And you're like, ugh, what the hell? But when it works, it's worked really, really well. And so, so that's been fantastic, and it's been nice to have a reason to play some more Virtua Fighter. That all kind of came out of the Game Awards. Might as well get into it, man. The 10th anniversary of the Game Awards happened last week on Thursday. And, some awards were given out. Astro Bot is the game of the year, according to the Game Awards. I think that's the right. It's maybe it's somewhat telling that I pulled up stories about the announcements at the Game Awards, but forgot to pull up anything about the award winners. But let's see here. Yeah, Astrobot won. What were the other nominees in that field? Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erd Tree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and Metaphor Re Fantasio. Astrobot is my favorite game of the games on that list. I don't know that I think that it's like the game of the year. In fact, I will tell you, I personally do not think it's the game of the year. I think of the games on this list, even though it is not a game I like that much, I probably would have rather have seen Balatro here, because I think Balatro just had a bigger footprint across the entire year. It helps that they, released it on mobile relatively recently and stuff, so it kind of got like an extra hit out of it or whatever. But Astrobot's a great game. Nothing really wrong with it. And so yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. Hellblade 2 won the audio awards, which is like, that's the right. If that game's going to win any awards, best performance and best audio design, and like that's the sort of stuff that it should be winning. Helldivers 2 won best ongoing game. Was an interesting category this year because every single game on the list was a game that just had some shit go down. You're just like, oh, I don't know, man. They maybe had a bumpy year. Helldivers 2 ended up winning there, which I think that's fine. I don't know. The big controversy about PSN logins and all the other stuff, and some of the updates they had around that time were also kind of not hitting. But whatever, people seem to still love that game, even on the other side of all of that stuff. Balatro certainly won its share of awards: best independent game, best debut indie game, and best mobile game. Best independent game is the only category that UFO 50 got nominated in, and I think it's a travesty of justice that UFO 50 did not win anything, and that UFO 50 was not a game in the running for actual game of the year. I think that's a game that I would very much like to see on that list, more so than, let's say, every other game on the game of the year list. I don't know that that's my game of the year either, but I would have, if that had made it through to game of the year, I would have voted for UFO 50 in a motherfucking heartbeat. Let's see here. Yeah, and not a lot of click holding on best independent game, which is a real just a miscarriage of justice. Tekken 8 wins best fighting game, which of course it did. There are other games out in this calendar year that you could credibly call a fighting game, but Tekken 8 is easily the winner there. Helldivers 2 wins best multiplayer game, which I think makes sense. It's a great year for Call of Duty, but Helldivers 2. I don't. I'm hard pressed to find like a reason to, for Call of Duty to win a lot of awards, just because or rather not a reason. I think like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 I think is a credible entry in best audio design, for example. But I don't think it wins against like a Hellblade 2 or something like that. I think it's a shoo-in as a nominee for best multiplayer game. I would probably call that my best multiplayer game of the year. But I understand why people would pick Helldivers in that situation there. It's just, Call of Duty, I think, has become this weird... For as popular as it is, I think we're reaching this point where, like it's become like Madden and a lot of those other, kind of perennial annual games that, kind of do this same thing. That I think that there's just a lot of people that just don't play it anymore. A lot of people that play a lot of video games, let's say, that are not as interested in Call of Duty anymore. And so, it kind of doesn't get the attention, even in years where I think I think this is a year where it deserves more attention than it's gotten, I think, from the press. But also, boohoo, it's Call of Duty. It's selling just fine, like whatever. But Call of Duty, they made dramatic changes to it this year, and I think that if you were going to award it stuff, this would have been a solid year to do it. I think, the Modern Warfare reboot was probably like the last time that there was like a really good reason to be like, oh, this is like, this feels like a dramatic change or whatever. That's kind of the Astrobot won and best action adventure, and Black Myth Wukong won best action, and it feels like those things should be swapped. I don't like the genre stuff is always going to be ridiculous. But Astrobot's a platformer. It is the definition of an action game. It is, like Mario is an action game. It's not an action adventure game. And so putting Astrobot in that category in the first place, I think, is straight up nonsense. And Black Myth Wukong, I think probably, maybe that's a fit as an action game. I would have to play more of it to remember anything about it. The time I spent with Black Myth Wukong was incredibly forgettable. Just like, oh, okay, yeah, all right. So yeah, I don't know. Like Stellar Blade probably belongs in action. It is in action, and it probably belongs there because it is more combat than than adventure-y type stuff, right? Either way, both of these classifications are kind of nonsense. So yeah, I don't know. Metaphor ReFantazia wins best RPG, which makes sense because it's the one that made it all the way through to Game of the Year. So obviously it would win its genre as well. Otherwise, what are you doing? Which means that Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth did not get a ton of shine in these awards. Astrobot wins best family game, which I don't know. That's depends on your family. My family tried it because they thought it looked cute and then didn't want to touch it ever again because it was too hard. So I don't know. There's not, it doesn't, I don't know. Nothing from where I'm sitting, nothing about Astrobot is a family game other than the part where you don't murder I guess you make a bunch of enemies pop with your jets and all this other stuff. But like, you know, it is a relatively non-violent game. But family game is just such a strange concept in the first place. So yeah. But yeah, I think like by and large, I think the awards went in the right places, even in situations where I might not personally agree with the winner. I can look at it and go, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Given these nominees, given this situation, like yes, I see why Final Fantasy VII Rebirth would win Best Score and Music. I think that makes sense. I think Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown winning an accessibility award when literally an accessibility issue prevented me from playing it is, let's say, fucked. But hey, they at least put the options in there. That's a weird one to judge too. Like, I almost feel like the innovation in accessibility category probably shouldn't be voted on by the entire judging pool. Like, they should probably get accessibility experts to weigh in on that more directly and leave everyone else out of it. Because if you don't need those accessibility options, to you, it's like, it's an interesting bullet point on a press release, right? Where you're just like, oh, they added there's a lot of menu options in here. Neat. And you're picking it based on that. Where, like, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has like way more audio options and stuff that they have not had in past years, that have gone beyond like, oh, we need to reduce the tinnitus noise. It's more like, hey, can you hear better in one ear than the other? Then we have options that will help with that. And so they've added, interesting accessibility options to that game. I do hear better in one ear than the other, but not to a point where I need that to be corrected. And I do have tinnitus, but that doesn't mean I need the tinnitus noise in the game to be reduced. So like, those are not accessibility options that I use. And so I look at it and go like, that's probably cool for somebody. And so someone looked at the Prince of Persia options and said, well, that's cool for somebody. But as somebody with my stupid eyes, I'll tell you that Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown failed me on that front, specifically in an accessibility setting. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird it's a weird category for a mainstream, for a bunch of people to vote on. That should be something that, where they actually can talk to people who maybe used all of those things and said, actually, these things are done really well. And these contrast options are actually exactly what you would need, because so many games get the colorblindness stuff completely wrong. That it's just stupid. And this might be a category that, if they explained why, that might help make more sense also. But yeah, that one was funny to me. As far as announcements, it was a big show. There were, we've got brand new video games being announced from studios you have heard of. We've got new intellectual properties being announced, and that's always exciting. And then, yes, the Turok is back. I don't know. On top of all that, the revenge of Turok. Naughty Dog announced their next game, and it is not the Last of Us sequel that everyone was expecting that it would be. It is a space. It's an alternate 80s space game where you are some kind of bounty hunter, and you are out there in your spaceship doing bounty hunting. It had a really cool kind of retro futuristic look. I think that aesthetic has been done to death, but I think that what they're showing, I liked the way they showed it. I think that they're carving it out pretty well. I think that they're taking the path of like, let's integrate brands into it, and so the spaceship has a Porsche logo on it, and you see like the 80s, like the original like Sony logo on something, and like there's it's kind of cool. I think that's like an interesting way to use brands. Obviously there are ways to just like throw a bunch of brands in there for like stupid reasons. But again, like the thing that I mentioned during the Game Awards is like, think about Marty McFly wearing those fucking auto lacing Nikes. And how like that was cool and also was like a grounding point for you who have seen actual Nikes in the world. You're like, oh, Nike is still around, and it's still, so it's like this weirdly, it helps ground the future in a way that makes it seem, I don't know, possible, plausible, whatever else. The whole situation there. And so I think that's a strong choice. I think when they do stuff like that, when they do it well, and I think that the trailer at least uses those brands well. And so when you see the Adidas logo on the shoes in the trailer and stuff like that, like I think that stuff works. When you hear that, like, a game called Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophet, and that it's a bounty hunter, space bounty hunter, but also it is this rumination on religion from the man who brought you The Last of Us. There's kind of a like, well, I don't know that I trust this guy to fucking do this well, but this studio is certainly capable of making some amazing looking things, and so we'll kind of see how it all comes together. But oh boy. And so they'll make this and they'll put this out, and then you'll get Last of Us 3 after that. So I'm sure, I bet if you worked at that studio and you had been making a bunch of Last of Us games for a good long time, you would probably be really excited to be able to do something else. And I wonder if there's just like at some point like a staff morale and retention thing of like, yes, we're definitely going to like let these people do something different so that they don't just all quit and go do something else because they're sick of making this thing over and over again, or the schedule, or whatever. So yeah, it's cool that they're doing something different and something new. And so I'll say I'm tentatively interested in knowing more, right? Because I think it's a cool looking trailer. I think there's something about the setting that I think resonates, and we'll see. And also, like, I think this setting and all of this stuff, at least so far, looks more interesting than anything else that modern Naughty Dog has made, as far as I'm concerned. I'm just, like, Uncharted never really did it for me, and The Last of Us certainly did not do it for me. And so we'll see. I don't know. I'm interested in knowing more, which is more than I would say if they had just announced The Last of Us Part 3. Elden Ring is getting a multiplayer game. It is a 3-player co-op game called Elden Ring Night Rain. Yeah, I don't know. Like people have always been interested in expanding the multiplayer in these games. Like you've seen people try to mod in like a more expanded take on multiplayer in some of the Souls games, or even directly in Elden Ring over the years, like trying to find ways to make that happen. And so it's cool that they're just going to go, fuck it, dude, we're going to make this game. They let some people play it. I guess some folks went to Japan to check it out over the last few weeks here. And some of the impressions upon their return have been positive. And so, yeah, I don't know. People want more Elden Ring. And I think that there's an interesting, like making one of those games that is meant to be explicitly multiplayer, though you can play it alone. I guess, yeah. So there's a catch. It's a 3-player game. You can play it alone, or you can play it with 3 players. Yeah, apparently there is no way to play it 2 players, which is weird. But that is where things currently stand with that game. Maybe now that they've announced it and a lot of people are going like, wait, what? Why? Probably because they didn't want to scale it. They didn't want to do the work of scaling. They didn't think that would be a problem, whatever it was. They just, so what happens if you get 3 players in a game and then one of them drops out? Does the whole session end? Does it force you to replace the third player? Like what? Or is it just a situation where like, hey, if you've got 2 players here, there's still going to be 3 of everything to kill and you're fucked? Is it just a situation where they just didn't do the work to make it scale for 2 players or whatever? But I think, when you look at the stories that have emerged around these games, when it's like, oh, there's this person, and this person is always like, this person is seemingly always waiting outside this boss gate so that you can summon them and they will come in and they will solo this boss for you and they will help you. And the number of different things that have kind of come out of these style of games having this weirdly limited multiplayer over the years, I think it's cool that they're finally looking to do something more with it. So neat, as long as it works, right? I mean, that's the other. Yeah. The Witcher 4 was announced, the Siri game that everyone has been, assuming that they were going to make for the last like however many years, decade, whatever it's been. They were like, oh, the next one's going to star Siri. I know it. And they're like, yep. You were right. They are exactly doing that. That was the trailer that they said, hey, this is running on an unannounced NVIDIA graphics card. I mean, CES at this point is like a few weeks away, so presumably we'll get whatever NVIDIA is doing with their 50 series cards will be completely announced and whatever by then. So yeah, I don't know. Like they said it was running on those cards, but like, was it, this is still a cinematic? Is this like, are you intending to say that every cinematic in the game is going to run in real time? Why does that, I mean, that's cool, but why does it matter? I mean, it matters in games. I guess if you want the armor to look accurate to whatever your character is wearing, like that stuff matters. But like I don't know. They're still cinematics at the end of the day. So what does that look like in game? Who knows? Probably fine. Hopefully it controls. I don't know. Like that's always my thing with The Witcher is like, they sound like amazing games, but the people that like The Witcher games seem like they really, really like them. Every time I play a Witcher game, I have been inundated with all of the shit in the Witcher games. And in Witcher 3, a lot of that included like, hey, the momentum on this character as it is starting to move really sucks. Like it feels like I'm playing this through a live stream preview window and not on a TV right in front of me. That stuff feels bad. And when they spent some time trying to fix that stuff and said, we have corrected the movement, and I tried it again and I was like, this is different, but it is not better. And that was all of my time with The Witcher 3. So I don't know. Hopefully that's not this. Hopefully that they finally make a game that plays like well, for once. But I don't know, there's just stuff about I always go back to just like, all right, we got these toxicity menus and you take the potion and it's going to do this, and you got your silver sword and your regular sword and you got this and that. And I'm like, I'm not sure that I care enough about this to deal with all of that stuff. But they did show that Project Robot from Gen Design, which is the studio led by Fumito Ueda and some of the other team, I guess, from Ico and Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian. There was a little thing on their new game showing a person climbing up a ladder on the back of a big robot and then making the robot's head blast off because there was a crazy shockwave coming. It's a cool look, like it's a cool vibe, but you're like, oh wait, well, am I the Colossus now? And so I need to run away from this shockwave because it's a Colossus killing shockwave or something like that. That'd be kind of neat. Borderlands 4 was shown. Not a lot of, the Borderlands trailer was fine. I mostly say that because there was very little dialogue in it. And that was a good thing. Like there was some moments in there where you see a little bit of like, I'm launching in the air and I'm throwing some axes and this is kind of like fluid and I'm mantling and I'm, there was like a 2-second clip in the middle of that trailer that I was like, oh, huh. Like that looks fluid in a way that Borderlands often doesn't. And that's the only difference I would say that I really saw in it. The rest of that trailer was just like, check out this gun. The narrative director of Borderlands 4 has been on social media. His name is Sam Winkler, responding to people who have been kind of asking him like, hey, is this gonna, like, basically, like they're not saying it, they're being a little bit nicer about it, but they are basically asking him, hey, is this gonna be fucking dog shit the way the last one was? Are you gonna fill this with the worst fucking internet ass fucking jokes that you could possibly like fucking write? Is this gonna be the worst written game in the, hey, narrative director, is this gonna be trash? Is the writing in this game going to be fucking absolute trash? Is basically what they're asking him. In his response, not at liberty to talk much about the content of Borderlands 4, but I remain firm in my criticism of Borderlands 3's overabundance of toilet humor. Yeah, like, so, which, sure, toilet humor is not the problem with Borderlands. It's not like there's nothing about, it's not like that game was one long running poop joke. Like the problem with Borderlands 3 was that the live streamer bad guy characters at the center of that game were fucking terrible and every word out of their mouth fucking sucked. It wasn't that the humor was literally about shit. It was that it was just that it was shit. And so, that's something that they have been slipping, into the void on over the last several of these games. Borderlands 1, I think, was like a good balance. It was funny enough, right? It was like, oh yeah, okay, you're making like a lighthearted, like, okay, yeah, Claptrap is actually like a decent character in this game. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. When the guy says catch a ride, you're like, okay, yeah, cool, all right, yeah, whatever, man. You're having fun with it, and I respected that about Borderlands 1. Borderlands 2 was already like kind of heading in a bad direction. They leaned into all of that stuff in the worst way. And then by the time you get to Borderlands 3, it's just like, it just feels like that someone just looked at Reddit for a long time and just went like, oh, these images are funny. Can we take the words on these images and put them into our game somehow? Can we do that? And so by the time you get to 3, it is this slurry of fucking trash. It is just like, it is so fucking bad, dude. Borderlands 3 is, it's hard for me to put into words how fucking awful, like, almost every moment of story dialogue was in that game. Like the ancillary, the kind of incidental dialogue of like while you're shooting stuff or whatever is like, it's okay. It's whatever. But like any single fucking cutscene, like by the time you get like 2/3 of the way through the game and they're like, oh, by the way, Penn Jillette is a character in this game. You're like, oh, of course he is. Of course he is. And every bit of dialogue he's got fucking sucks. And I don't dislike Penn Jillette. Hey, Penn Jillette, voice of Comedy Central. Here on Comedy Central. Like, if he just said that and nothing else, I would have been like, yeah, all right. Nice work, Penn Jillette. But, man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Real fucking terrible. And just I don't know, like I feel like, you know, people just kind of throw the same criticism at all of the games now, but like the meme-y shit, the kind of awfully written meme inspired stuff, like that's more Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3 is more like, hey man, we're poking fun at the internet and so we're, you know, these characters are live streamers and they suck in the way that we think that influencers suck. And you're like, okay, yeah, I guess. Like, I get it. Like, okay, I also think that influencer culture is fucking super fucking bad, but like the way you have tried to skewer it doesn't, it is that Matt Hazard problem of just like, this sucks the same way that this stuff actually sucks. Like, you didn't write funny jokes about it. You just made people that suck. Like, the world is full of it. Like, you have nothing to fucking add to the conversation. You know, you're not like, oh, they get theirs. It's just like, all right, here you go. Like, fucking, here's some live stream dipshits. You're like, great. I need more of that in my life. As a live stream dipshit, especially. I need more of that. So I don't know. But I like what this guy is putting down. Like, the other response he gave to someone, like, someone then responded to that and said, and you know, being... So you are saying I won't be able to use the poop farty 4000 while doing a mission to clean up porta potties with my companion Skibbity Toilet? And his response is, I'm not going to say there's no toilets. That's wise. Again, toilets, never the problem. Duke Nukem had toilets. We love toilets in video games. I'm not going to say there's no toilets, but if the word skibbity ships in the game under my watch, I'm going to cry real tears. Paul Tassi joked that we were going to have a gun called Hawk 2A. You know, like Hawk 2A. From the lady from the crypto scam. Sorry, maybe I have to be more specific about which lady and which crypto scam I'm talking about here. Paul Tassi joked that we were going to have a gun called Hawk 2A, and a fellow dev asked me if it was real, and I wanted to put my hand down the sink grinder. Yeah. But also, that's the game you're working on, is that developers, of course, they would think that. Of course, someone else working on the game would think that that is possibly real. Like, that's Borderlands. Like, if anything, that is on the higher end of, like, when you think about Borderlands humor, calling a gun the Hawk 2A is actually not bad in the grand scheme of fucking dog shit Borderlands writing. But yes, he's also right. They shouldn't. They've brought on some contract writers, some external folks to write a bunch of different things about it. And I think that, you know, like this game doesn't need to pull from culture that way, because I think that there's a few reasons. And someone in chat is saying kind of what I was about to get at here. Hilo comment says, I'm sorry, folks, this stuff is just culture now. If you don't like it, you're the weird one at this point. I don't know that I fully disagree with that. But I don't agree with that completely either. The problem is like fivefold, right? Is like there are so many different skewered and different types of culture at this point that don't intersect that you can kind of take your pick. And so not every part of the internet is fucking inundated with that fucking bullshit. But also, I think the big problem is, when will this game ship? Is it sometime in 2025? Did they put so it's going to launch at some point in 2025. And so, like, are you gonna, like, the girl, like, the Hawk 2A thing is done now, right? The concept of a meme, I mean, you know, like the very definite, the Webster's dictionary defines meme as Like, that shit is going to be fucking gone by the time that game ships. And so the biggest problem when you chase after that type of fucking comedy is that every single bit of it is played out by the time your game ships. Because that shit happens so fast. Like, it is the fastest moving culture in the history of fucking of culture. For better or worse. And so trying to grab onto that and be like, we're going to be funny like that thing on the internet is just, it's fucking pathetic. It's fucking sad. And so the Borderlands brand has become this pathetic and sad attempt to be like, no, we're cool. Look at my shoes. Like, you know, it's just fucking the worst, dude. And so you have to write stuff that works. They have to write stuff that's a little bit more timeless, or you have to wait so long and write your fucking, like, yeah, fill this game full of damn Daniel jokes. Like, fill it full of the fucking retro memes and, you know, put the fucking you can stay my home guy in this game. Like, make it classic. There was just an article about Star Wars Kid. Put him in the game. Where's Tron guy these days? You know, all the fucking weird old shit. And so, like, the idea, yes, the Ally McBeal dancing baby should be all over this game. That's one of the playable character classes. So, like, you know, just the very nature of them trying to grab onto this insane moving target and try to fill their game with it, and then their game is already shipping a year away, and then maybe it gets delayed, and, you know, like in the case of Borderlands 3, like, they refused to announce it for this really long time, and then it just came out. You know, it's just this whole weird thing. And I don't know. There are ways to leverage memes in your fucking thing that are probably not, like, hyper embarrassing, but your game that is, you know, that has to be locked down months before it ships or whatever, like, you're just guaranteeing that your shit's gonna look old and fucking super stupid. And so they're right to move away from this stuff. Even if they weren't necessarily changing the style of writing and the style of humor and the style of comedy that they were going for, which I don't think they necessarily will dramatically change. Like, all he's really saying is, we're not gonna fucking fill it full of memes. He's not saying that, like, oh, every line of dialogue is, you know, like, it might still fucking be terrible. You know, because if you think of, like, the style of the world in Borderlands is not just full of other people's memes. But at the same time, it is still that style of comedy. And so if they stick to that style of comedy, I think it will still fail. Like, they need to just overhaul all of that stuff completely and just go, like, okay, we need to figure out, like, what is the actual core of this? What is the core of this world? What are we, you know, like, what are we actually trying to fucking do here? And put a head on it and have it, you know, everything needs to be written in service of, like, that, of, like, okay, here's what we think this thing is. Because, you know, like, Tiny Tina didn't fall out of the internet per se. Like, the character of Tiny Tina was not immediately based on, you know, something that was on Reddit. Like, they just fucking came up with that and went with it. And then made a standalone game with her in it. And the standalone game was, you know, as a game, all right. Characters, fucking terrible. Yeah, Anjanam says, the thing I liked about Borderlands 1 was that every character was insane and the humor grew from that. Like, yeah. Like, yes, that's kind of... Yes, like, the Borderlands 1 was just like, this world is fucked and everyone has lost their fucking minds, and so everyone is just fucking running at you saying crazy shit all the time because it's a wasteland and, you know, it's just fucked. And, you know, I think they pulled it off here and there in that first game, you know? It was like the style of humor was more of the just like, oh, it's random, you know, like, oh, look, you wouldn't expect this maniac to say that, but he sure did. But I think that stuff worked at the time, you know, and I think that stuff worked for what they did with it. and made sense in the world that they were building. I think you kind of can't go with that anymore because I think that a lot of that stuff is also played out for different reasons. So like even the like check out the random sentences coming out of these guys' mouths as they are attacking you with an axe, I don't think that would really work. It's hard. It's hard. And also I imagine it must be really hard to try to like course correct after what the Borderlands franchise has sunk into, you know? And so writing that game, it sounds like a very daunting task. And so it's smart that they brought in a bunch of external people, and hopefully they'll get something that approaches, I don't know what. Hopefully they'll have, you know, like the moment to moment dialogue, the barks, whatever they are, you know, but even just like the stuff in the cutscenes themselves. Hopefully that stuff. It's not that I'm even looking for it to necessarily be more subdued. It's more that it's just, yeah, I don't know. They need to rein in the ancient meme culture stuff, and I think they should go with a somewhat more understated approach. I think that they started trying to cram too much into every moment with a lot of the writing, and they need a lighter touch with it overall. I think that, you know, they don't need every single thing to, like, they don't need to try to be funny every single moment of the game, because and especially when they're not, especially when it is by and large not fucking funny. Like, you know, let that stuff take a backseat a little bit. Let it, you know, let the game play out a little bit, and then as a capper at the end of a fight, have something that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, right, that actually is pretty funny. You know, I think that there's better ways to do it. As for the game itself, I don't know, man. Like, that game is so set in its ways in so many different ways that, like, there's stuff about that game that I still get disappointed about because I think Borderlands could have been and should have been so much more than it ever ended up being. And some of that is from a gameplay perspective and things they could have done to expand what the characters are. I think the idea of having these like preset character classes with skill trees, I think that stuff sucks. I think that they should have gone in favor of a more fluid character creation thing a long time ago with more cosmetic differentiation, based on the things you have equipped or whatever else. The idea that they still have a shield instead of armor because they can just put a bubble around you and not have to like have the armor look like what you're wearing. I like that to me was always like the craziest choice they made in that game, because think about, you know, when you go and you beat Cromorax, you want, you know, like it's fucking old MMO shit. You want the fucking pauldrons. You want the fucking spiked pauldrons that say I did that shit. Like, if this is going to be a game that you're going to release years of DLC for, which is, you know, kind of what it turned into, you should be able to look at someone and go, holy shit. Like, it's the Destiny thing in a way. And it's not that every gun has a story, because every gun comes out of a fucking slot machine in this fucking game. But there should be some things in that game that you wear on your character that, you know, and they've never really done enough of that. They started down that road ever so slightly, but like, you know, they would still have the thing where it's like you're unlocking new cosmetic looks and then you can just equip it on your character and, you know, different color schemes and whatever else. It just felt like they should have done more of that. Like, you know, they want to be this very light, very light, because it's not, they don't even do the first M. It's a 4-player game, but they chase some of these MMO concepts for leveling up and loot and all of this stuff, but they never really lean into the true value of the loot, which is showing it off to your idiot friends and saying, look at this thing that I did. It's like, oh, we need to go attune for this raid, and I need this and I need this, and, you know, like, there's stuff about that you know, you get to show off the prize, but like the prize is never good. They finally, you know, like, to me, when they, you know, like, there's a joke there and I think the joke works, but also there's a giving up when things like shift codes entered the game, when they said, what if we made a gun that shoots guns? it's this admission that none of it matters. You know? It's this admission of just like, yeah, man, I don't know, fucking get some more guns. Here's some more guns. Maybe one of them will be good. And I like the gun system in Borderlands. I think that they should overhaul it. You know, like at this point, this many games in, I would love to see them make way more dramatic changes. And even like more gun customization stuff would be nice. Like being able to farm the weird parts. Because to me, the most interesting thing about Borderlands is when you download the save editors for the first couple of Borderlands games and you actually get to see what the guns are made out of. You get to edit your inventory and actually go look at a gun and go like, oh, it's this part, and it's this like very long list of parts that the guns are made out of, and they randomly drop, and you know, different loot tables for different areas and whatever else, right? They gamify it, right? It's not just pure random. But I always felt that you should just be able to actually tweak the guns. And maybe you don't let people tweak them into the ultimate gun, you know, all the time. Maybe there's some other limitation on it to keep you playing the game and getting the rewards. But like, you know, you should be able to strip the guns down to their frames and rebuild them. And, you know, you should be able to farm parts and take parts off of guns and put them on other guns. And like, it just feels like that would be a more interesting way to go. Where you can say like, you know, okay, yeah, no, I salvaged this part and I got a lucky roll and I was able to take it off this gun without it breaking. And so now I have a barrel of this gun that I can put on any other gun to make it shoot bees, or, you know, whatever the fuck it is, right? And so you should be able to like customize that stuff in ways that are meaningful to you. And the game ideally should be built in such a way to reward that sort of thing, you know, where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's cool to actually customize the gun. It's fun. You can go out there and maybe you get a great, you know, a lucky drop and it's this perfect gun or whatever. But like, it's weird that the game never had any way for you to craft a weapon or to replace parts on it or whatever else. And so like that seems like something that, you know, that concept's time has come. You could argue that maybe it came and went. I don't know. Like, it's just weird, man. You know, and I think that's the stuff that I find really actually disappointing about Borderlands in the grand scheme of it. Like, yes, the writing is terrible, sure, but there's just a better game that you could have there if you gave the players more options and more meaningful stuff. Like Borderlands 1, I finished that game. I got every achievement in that game before it came out. That was maybe the last time I did that. No, it's not the last time I did that. I can't. Anyway. I played the shit out of Borderlands 1. I was very excited when Borderlands 2 was announced. And then when Borderlands 2 came out, I was like, oh, I don't think any of these classes, I don't like any of the classes in Borderlands 2. I would much rather just play as the fucking turret guy from the first game. And so it was the game has always just felt like it is being skewed further and further away from like letting you do cool shit that you want to fucking do as a player and building the class that you want to play and playing the way that you want to play. It's felt more like they're like, oh no, we've got a story to tell. And so now the guy from the first game, you'll run into him in a cutscene. You can't be him anymore. But now we've got these 4 other characters that kind of suck in comparison. This guy's got a turret, but it sucks way more than the other guy. And so the like, it just feels like that every decision they've made about the way they want to make Borderlands stands in some kind of opposition to the way I wish to play Borderlands, if that makes any sense. And I don't think I'm alone on that. I mean, the games have been very popular. It's not like, and I don't completely dislike Borderlands 2. It's just disappointing compared to what Borderlands 1, the promise that Borderlands 1 showed. I don't think it is on display in Borderlands 2. And certainly not in Borderlands 3. And certainly not in the pre-sequel. And not in the Tiny Tina game either. So yeah, I don't know. Borderlands is just, it's a very frustrating topic for me. And again, I think people reduce it down to haha, the meme game. I'm like, yes, that don't get me wrong, that part sucks also. But there are so many things that I wish they would have pursued over the course of that trilogy of games and the couple of, kind of add-ons or, extra games or whatever. There's so much stuff there that could have been better maintained, better cared for, whatever you want to call it. That I look at the Borderlands franchise as like kind of a giant missed opportunity. And that's weird because obviously it's sold quite well over the years. I don't know if 3 did as well as they wanted it to, but like it's sold fine, It was at least popular enough for them to try to make a movie about it. Not that went super well, but yeah, it became, they managed to build a lasting and popular franchise, for better or worse, right? And so, like, oh yeah, it's another one of those things like, oh, boo-hoo. But like, I look at it and go like, man, this could have been so much better than the thing that they made. Anyway, they showed that trailer. I don't, what they're saying about the writing, I think is intriguing. The trailer itself looked fine. Looked fine, but it doesn't tell you the things you want to know. I mean, they did say it's going to have like 4 new characters, like they're not moving away from the preset characters and classes and all of that sort of stuff. So they're sticking with that, I think, is maybe one of the specific things they've said. Capcom fucking snapped and said, fuck it, dude, we're going to make games. And good on them. Because they said they're going to make a sequel to Okami and they're going to make a new Onimusha game. Like, okay. Kamiya has formed a new studio and called it fucking Clovers to make a sequel to Okami. That is not something you would have necessarily expected to see in 2024. He left Platinum a while ago. There's an interview with Kamiya on videogameschronicle.com that if you want to kind of get inside that dude's head a little bit about forming this new studio and some of the people that he's working with, some of the other ex-Platinum people that he is working with. It's an interesting interview for sure. You should go give that a read. And just about the formation of Clovers and everything else. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's cool that they're going to make a sequel to Okami. They're working with a couple of external studios, one of which worked on the recent remake of Okami. I don't know how far along. It doesn't sound like they're super far along on the project overall, but yes, that is happening. They're going to make a new Onimusha. They have not really gone into too many details on that. Are they going to motion capture a horse? What weird thing will they mocap for Onimusha? Because that is always part and parcel with them making one of those, as far as I'm concerned. Capcom also, they in the process of this, they put out a press release for these games, or they put out, I guess, an investor relations release. So, slightly more investor focused, but it really is just a press release saying, hey, we're making new Onimusha and Okami games. The way they phrase it here, it says Onimusha is scheduled to be released globally in 2026. In the game, the samurai protagonist is equipped with the Oni gauntlet and engages in epic sword battles with the grotesque and otherworldly creatures known as Genma. So they're not really giving too much in the way of detail there. It says the game is set at the beginning of the Edo period in Kyoto, which I don't know. I don't remember enough about the older Onimusha games to know if that's where, like, when they were all set, or if this puts it earlier. Like, would it make sense for Jean Reno to be in this game, or is this a different time period? I don't actually know. My guess is he's not going to be in it, but we'll see. The way they phrase Okami is further, Capcom has begun work on an Okami sequel project. Nothing in terms of dates and whatever else. And they don't mention Okami, but this project is being co-developed with the director and members of the development team from the original Okami. Is as much as they get into there. But the interesting bit here is, again, this is an investor-focused kind of thing. In addition to regularly releasing major new titles each year, Capcom is focusing on reactivating dormant IPs that haven't had a new title launch recently. The company is working to further enhance corporate value by leveraging its rich library of content, which includes reviving past IPs like the 2 titles announced above, in order to continuously produce highly efficient, high-quality titles. So, Capcom remains firmly committed to satisfying the expectations of all users by leveraging its industry-leading game development capabilities in order to create highly entertaining gameplay experiences. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like they're not just saying it, they're doing it, because they announced a new frickin' Onimusha and a new Okami game. So a lot of companies say, oh, we're investigating that. We're thinking about it. Well, yeah, I don't know. We're taking a look. Should we make a new one of those? I don't know. We ran a fan survey. I don't know. We did a thing. And so for them to actually announce 2 games that fit the description of what they're saying, I think gives them a lot more credibility when they say this is a focus for us. And so, hey, Piano 3-2, it's finally gonna happen. All you Vanessa Zed Schneider heads out there that have been waiting for Piano 4, have been waiting for her to come back from vacation and take on a whole new quest, a whole new set of corridors to dance through. The time is coming. God, what else, man? Obviously Dino Crisis is a game that comes up over and over again. I don't know that I think that is... I don't think Dino Crisis deserves it, but I understand why it has its fans. When I think about Capcom and them trying to bring back stuff, it's weird, man, because I think there's a lot of, like, you think about Capcom as like multiple eras of game, right? Like these are games they made after Resident Evil, and I think Resident Evil was one of the games that changed the way you view Capcom as a company and the types of games that they make. And so it's easy for me to see games that came out in this era and go like, oh yeah, they should make a new Beautiful Joe. They should probably do that. But then when I think about like early Capcom, I go like, I don't, like, should they make a new Commando? Like, I don't know. Like, I would love to see them take another weird stab at Bionic Commando. There's a lot of other family members that are supposed to be trapped in a lot of other people's body parts, according to talking to people who worked on that game. There was a whole set of lore ready to go that they never got into. So the Bionic Commando, they could do a new speed rumbler. You can get out of the car. It's basically Grand Theft Auto. What would you do to Final Fight? At this point, could you make a new Final Fight? I think if you were going to make a new Final Fight, you would just go get the people that did Streets of Rage 4 and say, do that for us. Or some studio like that, and you would make a game like that. I don't think that you don't make Final Fight Streetwise 2, right? You just fucking don't. There are some people that are always going to say Power Stone, and sure, I guess. Darkstalkers would be funny to see somehow come back after all these years. I don't know. There's obviously Mega Man comes up a bunch, but honestly, if they never made another Mega Man game at this point, I would be okay. Like, could they make a great new Mega Man game? Sure, yes. If they could nail it, great, awesome. But that's not something that I feel like is like a burning, like, no, they have to do it. It's just like, yeah, if they've got a great idea for Mega Man, then they should do it. But if it's like, hey, we're going to make a first-person shooter, like the last idea they had when they thought about modernizing Mega Man. I guess my actual point here is, do people want a genuinely new Mega Man game? Or do they just want another 2D, like another Mega Man X, another 2D Mega Man X? Do they want another old style Mega Man game? Because I think we're talking about a couple of different things here, right? And if you're making, are you going to make a third person behind the back Mega Man game? Are you going to make a new Mega Man Legends that plays like Devil May Cry? That'd be cool. That'd be fucking weird, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like, but it feels like that when they view Mega Man, they always view it as, all right, we'll make another one of these. Here's Fuckman, and here's Rock Boy. Fuckman and Rock Boy is the new Mega Man game. It's going to be a big hit. We're pretty excited about it. Dr. Light has some shit to say that's really going to fucking make you crazy. Now I don't know. There's, I think a genuinely new Mega Man game would be off-putting to the people that say that they want a new Mega Man game. Even if it turned out to be good, I think you would still have a lot of people that just view it through that lens of just like, I want more of this. Why aren't you making more 2D ass Mega Man games? The same thing for Strider. If they were going to do a new Strider game, I would love to see that. Well, Strider's another thing that if you just turned it into a Devil May Cry, like maybe that would work. But I would love to see an actual search action game based, like an actual Strider game that was a full-on high quality search action game, instead of like the last one they put out was not really one of those. It was a very linear, straightforward game. But it would be cool if they did a good one of those. I like these polls, though, of like, no one was sitting there going, man, we've got to get another Okami. Dog, we've got to get a brand new Onimusha out there. Like, that's not something that people... So I like that way more. And I think those are weirder polls, and they tap into a different type of a different age group in some weird ways, of like, the people that were young when those games came out are very different from the people who were young when Mega Man was coming out. And so bringing Onimusha back, I think is awesome. And those games are relatively modern enough in the grand scheme of things that you can make a new one of those and, keep a lot of the things about those original games, and it'll still work. So like, so that's why I think something like a Dino Crisis probably works. And is more interesting than a new Mega Man game or a new Strider or a new Commando or, what if there was a 1942 2? Like they made that. It was nice. No, but, and so I don't know. Let's, can we do, Auto Modelista? Could we do God Hand 2? Could we do a sequel to God Hand? Is that too scary to touch, right? I mean, like the way people like God Hand is weird. But like, could you tap into God Hand, in a way that, that you could make a meaningful sequel to it? What about the Legendary Wings inspired game that they canceled, the 5th game of the Capcom 5 that never came out, whatever the fuck that game was called? What if they brought that back? They shouldn't. That thing didn't look like, I mean, you know, the Capcom, yes, Dead Phoenix. Let's make Dead Phoenix happen while we're at it. I don't know. It's very interesting to see them make this move and to Maximo. Yeah, Maximo, Dark Void, all the Capcom games developed in the US published from, you know, like brought together by the US team. The Bionic Commando game partially led. Yeah, let's bring all of that together. I like Dark Void. It was like a vertical Gears of War. It's cool. Maximo, you wouldn't make Maximo. You would make a Ghosts and Goblins. You would make a new one of those, you know? And then I think you get into a weird, like, like, could you make a new Lost Planet? You could. There's nothing stopping you from doing it, but I don't know that that's something that you necessarily, I don't know that that's the road you really want to go down. Yeah, Remember Me. Yeah, I'm sure they're getting right on that one. Yeah, that new Ghosts and Goblins was, yeah, it's not, you know, Devil May Cry, actually. You know, I mean, when you talk about games that, you know, you could make a Strider that played like Devil May Cry, what if you just made a new Devil May Cry? You could do that too. I don't know that people want those games as much as they used to. Did the quality of the Bayonetta games, did the quality of Bayonetta 3 sour people on that type of character action game? Because people seemed unhappy about it. But people like that last DMC, so, you know, it's a shame that Ninja Theory is not available anymore to actually make a proper DMC sequel. But there's, I don't know, there's something they could do with the Devil May Cry franchise. Sure. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like I think that they could literally do anything, but I think the older you get with Capcom's catalog, the more you get locked into like game styles and tropes and stuff that like you're making a new retro game. Like nothing about a new Onimusha game or a new Okami game says, hey, we're just making a new one of those old games you like. Like there's definitely things they could leverage, but like those things are capable of still feeling modern. Whereas people want such a specific thing out of Mega Man. I wonder, man. I would actually really like to see them, whether they just call it, you know, Mega Man Legends 3, you know, fuck, man. They had that game. They were making that game. I don't know if you pull any of that, if any of it matters anymore, but like, yeah, maybe you could make a full-on polygonal modern Mega Man game at this point and just say it's a new game in the Mega Man Legends franchise without maybe making a game that you don't want to. I don't think they should make a game that feels the way Mega Man Legends 1 and 2 felt, because gaming has changed, you know, like that, those games were coming out at a very specific time. We've come a long way. We can do better as a society than that. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't like. Yes, it'd be cool to see them do something actually ambitious and rad with Mega Man. I just don't know that they could get away with it. I just don't know that the fan base wants that. Some of them certainly do, because Mega Man Legends obviously had, you know, its fans or whatever. But like now, are those fans too locked in to what Legends was? So if you made a truly modern third-person action game and called it Mega Man Legends, would people be pissed because it doesn't have the idiosyncrasies of a game made in that time frame? You know, I don't know. These are hard problems to solve when you're thinking about some of this stuff. And it's kind of the nice thing about Okami and Onimusha is I think it sidesteps a lot of that shit, because I think those are both games that like still feel relatively modern, and they didn't get done to death. Like they don't have necessarily have decades of calcified mechanics. There's things about Okami, there's things about Amaterasu that you go like, oh, well, hopefully these things, hopefully you can still do this. You know, hopefully this is still in Onimusha or whatever. But it's not drilled into your brain. They didn't make fucking cartoons about it. You know, like what the fuck Mega Man's voice sounds like. You know, like there's just less stuff out there. And so I think they get to, they're not as locked in to ancient mechanics with those two games. And so I'd like to see them pursue more stuff in that specific vein. Because I think that's a time period that we don't see, like games, you know, when people say, hey, we're making a new one of these, it's so often it is some ancient 8-bit, 16-bit thing that's coming back or whatever, you know, and so pulling from this time period is a really interesting thing for them to do. Speaking of interesting, I don't know if this is actually interesting or not. Speaking of search action games, Namco is making something called Shadow Labyrinth. You play as a dude with Pac-Man following you around. I guess his name is Puck. I guess the character's name is Puck. As your mag almost, but there are parts of the trailer where it shows you directly playing as a Pac-Man, a robotic Pac-Man thing. And so they're going to leverage Pac-Man as well as other Namco arcade classics for this game. That Namco is making, like, yeah, it's an interesting look, if nothing else. It seems like something that could be cool. And it's a very weird trailer. The Outer Worlds 2 was shown. That's going to come out in 2025. I thought that looked fine. Like I would play another Outer Worlds game. I liked that first one just fine. The thing I always say about Outer Worlds is the first planet in that game, the first major quest in that game is really, really well done. And all of the writing and just like the things you do, not even necessarily the tone or the writing or whatever, but everything you do after that is not as good as that first planet. And that has always been my read on that, is that it just kind of falls off. And so by the time you got to the end of Outer Worlds 1, you're just like, okay, sure. But like I think that they created a fun world, and so I would like to see more of that game, and I hope that they do a better job. I hope that they do a better job at crafting a game that is, you know, well done start to finish. Obsidian is working on a lot of stuff these days. So, you know, I don't know how they're finding time to have all these projects running at once, but cool. Virtua Fighter 6. That's it. They showed Akira wearing a fucking hat, punching Sarah. That's it. There's barely any. There was barely any gameplay in that thing. But in the you know, in the middle of them announcing the next Like a Dragon game, they also stopped to say, hey, there's a new Virtua Fighter project. And then, yeah, they showed a teaser for something called Project Century, which is kind of it seems like an early 20th century thing on for Like a Dragon. Or maybe something, maybe it exists outside of the Like a Dragon franchise. I have my doubts. I bet that is like when they like to have fun with this series, and they like to, you know, kind of take it places and do time periods and all this other stuff. I could see them very much making that a Yakuza game by the time they are done with it. But yeah, I don't know, maybe it'll end up existing outside of it. I don't think they've said one way or the other, but I don't know. Hazelight announced Split Fiction. That game pretty much leaked out. or the details of it leaked out a while ago. It is another kind of forced co-op game from that studio, kind of a sci-fi trapped in the computer kind of thing going on there. These games have done absolutely nothing for me. It's cool that people liked It Takes Two and A Way Out. Also, I think that dude needs to rein it in at the Game Awards. I think that like the having Joseph Ferris come out and be like, I'm the loose cannon, I'm gonna say the fuck word. You know, it just I don't think it. It's just kind of whatever. At this point, I think it gets in the way of the game to a certain extent. And I suspect he's more than that, right? But now it's just like, let's get him out here so he can fucking say some crazy shit, and then he has to ramp it up on top of that. It was a funny moment where he got on stage, if I remember the timing of this. He got on stage and cursed a few times in the process of his segment. And then they did the Borderlands segment after that, and Randy Pitchford came out on stage and then like didn't curse, said like mother flippin' or something like that, where you're just like, oh, congratulations. You like the timing of this and the way that worked out made Borderlands 4 seem even dumber somehow as a result of that. Not saying you have to curse to make it, but like, I don't know, the game has curse. It's whatever. It's just a strange thing. Brief teaser for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. I asked my daughter, who is a Mario Kart fan, a couple of questions last night. I said, do you think it would be cool if they made a Mario Kart 9? And she said, yes. And I said, what would you do? What would you do to it? And we were in the middle of talking about Animal Crossing, so I think this may have influenced her design choice. But she said, it should be all the characters from Animal Crossing. And then she stopped for a minute and said, but also Princess Peach. I said, yeah, okay. Yeah. And then I asked her, what if they made a driving game like Mario Kart, but they put Sonic the Hedgehog in it? And she didn't seem at all interested. She was just like, which felt good. So yes, I don't know. They're going to make a new Sonic racing game. I think part of this is because she doesn't know. She doesn't really know that much about Sonic the Hedgehog. She doesn't know that there are girls in that universe, because I don't think anything that she's seen has ever had Amy in it. And so maybe she will end up gravitating towards Amy if such a thing ever comes to pass. I don't know. They're making a new Turok game. Saber Interactive making something called Turok Origins. It's a third-person game. They seem like the right studio to make. I don't know. This doesn't seem like something that necessarily has to have the Turok IP on it. But if you're making a third-person multiplayer-focused game where you fuck around and shoot a bunch of dinosaurs, that could be cool. I don't know. What do you feel like if you're making a Turok game? So Night Jams is asking the question that I am also asking. Is will the cerebral bore be in this game? Because I feel like that is the only identifiable thing about Turok is the cerebral bore. The weapon that would it would drill into your head. And that was it. And also dinosaurs. Like, that's it. What's Turok about? Fuck, dude, I don't know. Dinosaurs, and then also when they started getting up their own ass about all this multiplayer stuff, they made a weapon called the cerebral bore. And it drills into your head. Like, okay. I don't think the Turok games are good. I think the Turok games were amazing for games that were coming out on the N64 at that time. And so those games reviewed intensely well. I want to say there were people that wanted to give Turok 2 Game of the Year the year it came out. And we may have. I don't remember. Like all the things I say about GoldenEye that sometimes people think are like controversial is too strong a word, but that people think, you know, that I'm like fucking around or being an asshole or whatever. About like GoldenEye is only a good game if you only had an N64 and had never played a shooter anywhere else. Like, okay, if you want to push back on that, then okay. But I will not let you push back on that when we are talking about Turok. Those games are bad in any other context other than you only have an N64. But yeah, but we were separate from GameSpot at the time. We were our own thing. And so I saw GameSpot put up a thing that's like every game of the year we've ever given, but they ignored whatever we would have given Game of the Year in 97, or like they only talk about the PC side of stuff before things merged. They left out a bunch. Because they weren't there and they don't remember that. But so we may have given Turok 2. What year did that come out? Turok 2 came out 1998. Okay, no, we would not have given it to, no, not in 1998. Certainly not. Not in the year that Ocarina came out. But people really, really liked Turok 2. And I remember liking Turok 1 okay at the time. Again, in the context of like, well, you know, for games that you need to play on this fucking stupid controller, you could do worse than Turok. But like, we gave Turok 2 like a fucking 9.8 or something crazy. And I remember just going like, I don't know what you guys, all right, these games are fucking stupid. And we went and did this big, long preview on, I remember the person who was doing previews at the time, it was something that I remember like hearing and going, wait, what? I think it was like, this would have been years later when like Turok Rage Wars was coming out, when they decided, no, we're going to make a multiplayer only Turok game. And I remember the person who was doing the preview came back and said, yeah, I spent a bunch of time with Dave Distenbeer, or whatever his name, the guy who was, you know, one of the Turok guys. And I gave him a bunch of ideas about what they should do to fix Rage Wars, and they didn't take my advice. And well, this game could have been good. And I was like, okay, that's not your job. Your job is not to give them fucking advice about, you know, what the you did what? I'm like, eh. I remember shaking my head very sternly over that situation. No, it was not a situation. It was someone came back from a preview trip and told a story, and I went, ugh, what? Don't do that. Let's see what else, man. There was they showed that Mafia game, you know, like there's some little things here and there, like, hey, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is gonna come to PC finally. Clive from Final Fantasy 16 is gonna join the Tekken 8 roster as of, I guess, yesterday. Huh. I was wondering why the Tekken patches were so big all of a sudden. It was like, here's download 5 gigs. I'm like, wait, what? Clive. Is Clive cool? I don't know. I don't really. Yeah. The developers of Sifu are working on a soccer game that when you look at it and you're told, hey, the people who made Sifu made this, you look at it and go, huh. Weird. You see some of the Sifu technology going into a soccer game. It's real weird. Jimmy Jam says, Metacritic says GameSpot gave Turok 2 a 90, but the review says 6.7, so I don't know what's happening. I can tell you what's happening. at some point when GameSpot merged console and PC coverage together, and I don't think we fucked this up originally. But at some point, as that site got redesigned over and over again in ways that made it worse, a lot of the there are games that came out on PC that would have gotten a totally separate review that would have that from what it got on N64, and so some of those console reviews have been lost off the site, or they may be there buried somewhere. When I had access to their database, I actually spent time trying to find those old reviews and reattach them in ways that would make sense. And then at some point I went like, what the fuck am I doing? I don't give a shit about that. And stopped. But like, yeah, I don't know. Some of that. So yeah, they surface, I think they default to surfacing the PC version of a review in situations where there were both. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of articles on that site that only exist somewhere in the database and are not actually visible unless you go in and manually, and like I said, I went in and manually reattached a lot of stuff and published it and just kind of did that on my own without telling anybody and fixed a bunch of stuff. And then was just like, what the fuck am I doing? And so that's, yeah, I don't know. That's the Game Awards. I think it's a handful of additional announcements. That's certainly not all. There was kind of a lot there. And so I think it was a pretty good show overall. I don't know. Like I said, I think the awards themselves went to, like decent choices. I don't necessarily, they're certainly not my choices in every single case. But I look at it and go like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I think it was a good set of awards. I don't want to have to hear 21 Pilots ever again. I don't want to have to fucking ever encounter not only that band, but any band like it. I just like, yeah, Imagine Dragons, whatever. I don't want to fucking hear that shit. I was talking shit about 21 Pilots on Blue Sky. And Blue Sky has been adding a lot of users lately. And as it has done so, it's this weird thing of like, oh man, like all the dumb fucking reply guy people showed up here. Wow, it's bad. It's like, it's not great. Because someone was like, well, I don't know what 21 Pilots is good, actually. It was just like, all right, like, fuck you. Like, what do you, all right. You're certainly welcome to think that. You don't need to tell me. I don't fucking give a shit. Some fucking random dumb, yeah, there's some weird, bad faith arguments. Like, there's just a lot of weird shit happening on Blue Sky right now as bots try to flood the platform. And like, there's a bunch of real weird stuff happening there at the moment. It's a trip to see how that thing is evolving, spinning apart, whatever it is. Let's see. Gosh, what else happened? Why don't we take another break? We'll come back. We'll talk about the rest of the news after this. Hey, look, it's time to get organized. It's time to get your finances under control. It's time to figure out where your money is going. Sometimes that can be a little tricky to discover. You'll have these subscription services, a lot of which renew every month, and they can be easy to forget because they're not that much money. But some of these annual ones, I get hit by these, where it's like, oh, I signed up for some service that's like, you could make a podcast, you could stream your podcast to this and this. And then by the time it renews, the price has gone up an insane amount. And it's like, by the way, here's another $400. And you're like, wait, what? What happened? Rocket Money is here to pull all of this together so that you can figure out what the heck is going on with your spending across all of your different accounts. You can track your spending habits and, figure out maybe, where you can cut back and get rid of some of these services that you're no longer using, whether it's a streaming service or, extra bank charges or some of this other stuff. There's just a lot of A lot of stuff like this that can just end up just sucking money out of your bank account without you even realizing it. Ugh. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. You can see all of those subscriptions in one place, so you know exactly where your money is going. And for ones you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them, which that's the savings, just the time savings on not having to go through 9 different insane phone trees before you get to cancel a thing. You know, like, are you sure you want to cancel it? Do you want to maybe could we upsell you on a thing that you're already not using for a cheaper price? And you're like, well, I guess so, because I want to get off this call. And then you end up getting off the phone without the job having gotten done. Rocket Money will do the job for you. If you like, you can easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track and, figure out the monthly spending trends in each one of those categories and know where things are going. They will alert you if bills increase in price, or if they see unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over your budget. They also have a goals feature that can automatically save a little bit of money for you, so you don't have to think about it. You can pay off credit card debt, put away money for a house, or just build your savings. Rocket Money makes it easy. Rocket Money can even try to negotiate lower bills for you. They'll automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save, and then you can ask them to negotiate on your behalf. They'll deal with customer service so that you don't have to. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/JeffG today. That's rocketmoney.com/JeffG. rocketmoney.com/JeffG. Okay. The Switch 2. There's been a interesting uptick in various rumors and increasingly serious sounding dialogue about the announcement of the console and how it's imminent and what games they're going to announce it with. There's, that I can't really vouch for one way or the other. There was something saying like, oh, they're going to announce it in January and they're announcing Mario Kart 9 with it. And, this is happening. But the thing that is actually happening that I think we can talk about a little bit more directly is that we're starting to see peripheral companies and case manufacturers, much like with phones. We would see this, you'd see this like a month or so before the new iPhone would get announced and unveiled and whatever else. You're starting to see people making cases for the new console that has not been unveiled yet. Such as D-Brand, which is a company that, I don't know, I think their attitude, whatever. The D is very fitting. They have a page up on their site saying coming soon, with a case that they claim is for the Switch 2. And it is a form factor that is, very familiar for the, a modification, an update on the existing console. Seems like there is one new button, which there had been some talk about it having an additional button, but basically the same layout more or less as the original Switch in terms of button placement and analog sticks and plus and minus. Maybe that the things are the form factor is a little bit more forward and the grips are a little bit bigger. There's been talk that the Joy-Cons will connect via magnets as opposed to a rail. And there's also talk that, these are going to be Hall effect sticks, which would, shut people up about all of the stick drift happening on the original Switch. Or, I guess it wouldn't, because they wouldn't fix the drift on the old ones, but at least it will stop that from happening. When asked about it, the people at D-Brand are claiming that, yes, this is legit, this is real, and that they're making it. This is the company that made those unofficial side plates for the PlayStation 5, and then had to modify them because they were too close to the real thing. And so now everything they make has this real fucking chip on our shoulder, like suck a dick, lawyers, like vibe to it. And I whatever. It's just like, it's exhausting. Like, calm the fuck down. You're making fucking different colored plates and shit and cases. Like, fucking calm down. The plates look nice. The PS5 plates, I think, look nice. And yes, you're right. That is the right attitude to have about lawyers, for sure. But, and so this supposed kill switch case for the Switch 2, is probably accurate. I think if we just look at it through the lens of, the way case manufacturers for iPhones are always saying, like, here's the new cases for the new phones, and without really ever saying how they got the details on what's the notch look like this year, what's the camera cutout, well, how big does this case need to be? They just seem to know, because that stuff will leak out of a manufacturing facility. There have been some shaky videos showing controllers, showing Joy-Cons and stuff like that. Some of that got pulled down, but like, it just feels like there are things leaking out of Chinese factories that are getting posted around and making the rounds, making you think that, like, we've got to actually, which I think it lends credence to some of this other discussion about, like, oh, hey, the announcement is actually imminent. You look at it and go, like, yeah, I mean, if all this stuff is starting to leak out, like, clearly at this point, they would be making them. They would be manufacturing this stuff. Like, this stuff would be happening, you know, just on any kind of reasonable time frame. If they want to make millions of these to have for a launch, if they want to roll these out around the world, like, yeah, they're probably rolling off a manufacturing line as we speak. Teflon Billy says there was nothing from Nintendo at the Game Awards. Yeah, well, that's not necessarily. I think Nintendo will announce things on their own. I don't think they need to. I don't think that they necessarily see the value in the Game Awards the same way some other publishers do. They did have an ad about third-party, showing some of the third-party games coming to Switch, but they're not going to announce a console there. They're going to, like, everyone will drop what they're doing and learn about Nintendo's new console when they announce it. They don't need to piggyback onto anyone else's event. They don't need to do that. They want to have as much time as they want to do the thing they need to do. And that's that. Though they'll still show up to the show and they'll happily dance along to the performances. So yeah, you know, it's also entirely possible that this D-brand case thing is either completely wrong or them just fucking around. Like, you know, we don't necessarily have verification of just like, hey, this is absolutely 100% legit. Like, it's probably legit if we just think about the timetables and how this other stuff happens. And, like, you know, I don't necessarily not believe them, but we don't have, like, firm confirmation about, like, hey, yes, this is absolutely the way the console is going to look, but it's probably right. Speaking of the future of consoles and all this other stuff, Windows Central's Jez Corden got online and started talking about some things that he had heard. He's had a pretty good track record when it comes to hearing things that Microsoft is discussing or thinking about or what have you. But the basics of the claim here, and VideoGamesChronicle.com has kind of summed this stuff up. But the basics of it are that there's really not going to be very many, or any, is kind of the claim he is making, is that Xbox won't have exclusives going forward. Everything is timed exclusive at most. And 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 that more or less that they are going to move to bringing all of their games to other platforms over time. This is. Video Games Chronicle cites a Variety interview with Matt Booty where he's quoted as saying, "We're very much making the exclusivity and windowing decisions on a game-by-game basis, and each of our studios is in a little bit of a different position. There's also the production timeline on a game, so the decision on spacing comes there first. We want to make sure there's a great experience for our Xbox players, and then the gap between when it becomes available on other platforms is as much a production decision as it is anything else." So to me, that says they will improve their production process in ways that make that window even smaller over time. If it's a production decision, then they can change their production to focus more multi-platform, and they can, put these games out on PlayStation 5 day and date. We've talked about this at length. I don't necessarily need to go over all of that again, but I think when you look at what they're doing multi-platform now, I don't think there are any reasons for them to not do this. Like the reasons you would get mad, or the reasons you would feel weird about them doing something like this, all of that stuff is rooted in, I want to say nostalgia, but it's just rooted in the way things have been, and there's no real reason for things to stay that way, especially in a world where they're not selling consoles at the rate that they wish they were. And so when something like Fable, if something like Fable comes to PlayStation, you go like, oh, well, that's a little weird. But more so than Fable, when Gears of War comes to PlayStation, when Halo eventually makes its way to PlayStation, that's a weird thing, right? Because those are some of the franchises that everyone associates with the brand. And you go like, well, what's the brand if it doesn't have this? I'd say, A, those games can't be associated with the brand anymore because those games just aren't big enough anymore. Like, Gears will come out and it'll do fine, but it's not like Gears is some top-selling, number one selling game the year it comes out. Halo is capable of reaching a higher height than that, I think, but like, Halo has fallen on some weird times on its own. And also, we're talking about the company that already multi-platform publishes Call of Duty, Minecraft. Like, some of the biggest games in the world are games that they are not holding back for their own platforms. The reasons they got there, I think, are very sensible. But like, in a world where they're already putting their largest games, Indiana Jones is coming to PS5 in the spring, or, as another example. But in a world where they are already doing that with the biggest games that they are in control of, you're going to like get hung up about like, oh, they can't put Gears of War on PlayStation. Like, sure they fucking can. They absolutely fucking will. Why wouldn't they? I still think Starfield will eventually come to another console. But again, that's a production, like with where they're at right now and some of the decisions they made after acquiring these studios, they were not at this point yet where they were going to do this. They were like, oh, okay, we're going to, we're going to make these games. They hadn't walked down this road far enough, early enough for those decisions to have been made about a game like Starfield. But like, there's no reason not to do that. In fact, there are plenty of good reasons to do it. And I think the other thing that people need to remember when these discussions come up about these games going other places and whatever else, if Microsoft were to put out a new Xbox, if they, let's say 2026 or 2027, whatever, when they finally say, here is our new console and it's coming out, if that console were to sell like fucking crazy, and they had this big install base and they were off to the races with it, there is nothing stopping them from saying, actually, we're going to pull all of these games back except for the ones we are legally obligated to produce on other platforms, and now they are all going to be Xbox exclusives again. This stuff can change with the wind, man. Like, as they sell consoles or don't sell consoles or whatever, they can afford, they can just make those decisions that was whatever's best for their business at the time that they are making those decisions, right? And so I just look at it and go like, yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense with where they're at right now. And I think that their whole push for like, the whole like this is an Xbox thing, I think all of that sets them up for like, I don't think that's actually going to happen. I don't think they will issue a new Xbox that will sell so well that they'll go like, oh, well, we've got to get some platform exclusives. We got to pull all this back. We're the lead platform again. Fuck everybody. Like, I don't think that they will pull that off. And so, partially because they're, they're invested in making sure these games are playable on PC. They're invested in making sure that these games are playable on fucking phones, to whatever degree you want to do that is a different story. But like, I think that that's a sound investment for them. I think that's a sound place for them to be given where the market is at and everything else. I think the weirder kind of question you run into is just like, well, what if these new consoles come out and like, it's not necessarily that the Xbox is crushing it and selling like gangbusters. It's more like, oh, what if PlayStation kind of falls off a little bit? What if they ship a PlayStation 6 and, people have, been fed up with the way the PS5 Pro went or whatever, like, I don't think it's necessarily true that like the PlayStation brand is this insurmountable, brand in video games. It's more that like, they'll come out with a handheld. Microsoft will come out with their handheld, like stuff, there's just a lot of fucking shit that could happen over time. There's no reason to believe that Sony would completely shit the bed. And if anything, like Sony's strategy of just like, fuck it, we're just going to keep doing our thing. I don't think that serves them well in the software. When they're trying to solve problems of like, how do we get more people to play Spider-Man 2 because it's fucking expensive to make Spider-Man 2. I don't think that their strategy necessarily works in their favor. And I think that they probably eventually tighten up the window between PlayStation and PC. Just to help come a little bit closer. Like they benefit from marketing. Like there's a bit of like when some of these first party PlayStation games come out on the PC, it's been a long time, right? And so the PlayStation version of the game has kind of come and gone, and people liked it. And there was a big marketing push when that game first came out, but that's all over. And so you kind of have to start all over again and make people aware of it. Like, hey, this thing happens. If you ship that game in both places at the same time, you do lose out on the effect of people buying it twice. But I always feel like that's if you're relying on people buying two of your thing, you're kind of already fucked. Like it's a bad strategy to have. So I don't think that they necessarily view that as like, oh, we've got it. That probably can't be a major factor for them forever. It probably does them better to ship it all at once and say, hey, this is available on PlayStation and it's available on PC, and we're putting TV ads everywhere. Like the ads for this game are all over the place. And so like the PC version gets to benefit from that marketing push in a way that it doesn't now. That probably is better for them long term than the idea of like, we've got to sell as many PlayStation copies as we can, and then we got to hope people want to double dip when it comes out on PC and what, like that. I don't think that that's a lasting. I don't think that's a meaningful strategy, and I don't think that's a meaningful part of their. I can't imagine that's a meaningful part of their existing strategy, that they see that as like the one of the big benefits of the way they're doing it. It's probably like a small bullet point. They're like, some people buy it twice. It's kind of cool. So yeah, I don't know. It's Microsoft not having exclusive games and just shipping things everywhere, I think makes a great deal of sense for them. I would not necessarily say that the same is true for PlayStation. I don't necessarily think that the PlayStation games get a lot of value out of shipping on Xbox, but shipping on PC, and maybe in some cases shipping on Switch, like they did with Lego Horizon and MLB, I guess technically. I think that probably makes a little bit more sense for them. Depending, when Sony has their own handheld out, maybe that conversation changes a little bit. But I don't know. I think the consumers they're trying to reach are not necessarily invested in any of this bullshit. You know what I mean? Oh, I got it. It's exclusive on this. It's here on this. Like in a world where you're trying to now reach beyond the people that would ever care about any of that platform exclusivity. You're trying to reach this larger mainstream audience, and you're trying to reach out to this, trying to get to players where they are instead of always forcing them onto your platform. I think the benefits there are there are good potential benefits there for sure. All right. Let's see here. Let's get into some emails here. podcast@guard.bike is the email address. You can send in your email to me. I will check it out, and I will read many of them. Yeah, no, you're right. Yes, Fix Your Art or Die says it's funny because exclusives were such a big thing in games forever, but they've been increasing, less they're less of a focus for like a decade. And yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think that part of that is because one platform is not necessarily holding up their end of the fight, right? There are not as many first-party Xbox games shipping, and the ones that are not always, like Indiana Jones has been this like nice revelation in a weird way of just like, oh right, yeah, sometimes these, but even that's Bethesda, even that's Machine Games, even that's just a studio that they bought, the same way Call of Duty is. It's not the classic MGS, Microsoft Game Studios thing, and so it remains to be seen if games from those studios are going to hit the way they need to hit. They haven't been, that's for sure. But that's only part of the story, like that's really the idea that they have not been shipping as many games is only part of the story, because I do think you've got players that are tired of it. I think you've got players that are sick of it. And I think you've got players that they made their choice on a console and they're not going to buy the other one because they're super expensive. They always were. But now we're not even seeing meaningful price drops across this generation. So even these situations, you might be able to backdoor your way into year 4, I decided to buy an Xbox to go with my PlayStation because it became cheap to do so. And now I can go back and I can play all of these games that have been coming out for the last 4 years. And so I went and I bought all these games, that doesn't happen. These consoles are still super fucking expensive. So you're not as likely to go out and buy both of them. Especially when the difference between those two consoles is as narrow, as narrow, if not more narrow than it has ever been. The difference between an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5 is minor. You want to say, oh, the PS5 Pro is so much more capable. Sure. You're not wrong, but that's also $700. And so that's fucking crazy. It's a crazy amount of fucking money. And so it's a situation where if you're going to own multiple consoles, it's not going to be a PlayStation and an Xbox, especially in a world where Xbox games are showing up on PlayStation. You're either going to see the value in a Game Pass subscription and you're going to go that way because of those reasons, or you're going to value being able to play just about everything and you're going to get a PlayStation, because then you can play Sony's stuff as well. And then if you're going to buy a secondary device, it's going to be Nintendo's thing, because you probably want to play whatever Nintendo is working on. And that's why the Nintendo third-party story is never going to change. It's never going to be their focus. They don't focus on it the way that these other console manufacturers do. They certainly value their third-party partners. They certainly go out of their way to, work with those partners. It's not that they straight up don't give a shit, but when they make their bones on the Switch, it's because of the first party stuff. The third party stuff, when it sells, is like, oh, cool, weird, okay. And maybe that will change this time around, but if it does, it'll probably be temporary, right? Because there'll be a window there where the Switch 2 is more powerful, and people go, oh, this is cool. We can port our games over here, and then some gap will change somewhere else, and it'll be a pain in the ass again, and you'll be like, well, whatever. Or you get a PC, and a PC really is, a PC is a pain in the ass. I'm gonna, a PC is a fucking pain in the ass. There's a story yesterday saying, hey, if you have the NVIDIA app installed, it might cost you 15% of your performance on your graphics card in some games. And if you do a clean driver install, then, without that app install, you're like, fucking what, dude? PC games, they crash. Console games crash now a lot too, but PC games, you run into incompatibilities, you run into driver updates, you run into all of this other stuff, and you have to launch it. You have to get a mouse and keyboard and launch this and do this, and and there are always ways around this. There are always ways to try to simplify the experience. Whether that's Steam Big Picture or, the Xbox app now has its compact mode that they are working on to try to make it more friendly for people who want to play PC games that way, which, I don't know. And we'll see, if Valve goes down this road of shipping Steam machines again. There was another bit in some of the Steam code that was alluding to the idea that Valve might have more hardware up their sleeve than just handhelds, which is intriguing. But Nirikip says mobile is fucked, so handheld consoles make a lot of sense right now. Yeah, absolutely. Mobile is the home of fucking super hyper casual free to play bullshit, and Apple Arcade, which I don't know how many people sign up for Apple Arcade. But it's not giving you the games that you want if you want games. But even in that situation, it feels like the situation with games on mobile is not getting better. It's not improving. It's not like, oh, these games are so much better now. It's more like, Capcom decided to ship Resident Evil and Death Stranding came out on phones and no one bought it. No one cares about that style of game running on a phone, which I think shoots a lot of holes in Microsoft's streaming stuff. Because they're counting on people maybe wanting to play games of that style on a phone, which I don't really see it. I don't really see it in a mainstream way. Will there be dedicated people who are just who are, running Moonlight right now on a phone and going, fuck you? And yeah, sure. Yes, those people exist. Sure. But, I love the PC. I play most of my games on PC, but there are more and more people every day who are not equipped to actually own a PC. Owning a PC is going to eventually that motherfucker is going to break somehow in a way that you're like, oh, I don't know. Some driver update did something and I'm lost. And I need someone else to come help me because I don't know what to do anymore. And I have been PC gaming since the 90s. And so I feel relatively well equipped to fix these issues and address these issues. And, I can take this whole computer apart and put it back together. God damn it. I get some thermal paste. We could do the whole thing. I could reinstall everything from scratch. I have done so. I will do so again. A lot of people are completely ill-equipped to ever do that. They look at it and go like, oh, I can't. I can't. I don't want to touch. I'm afraid I'm going to break it. I don't know how to, what is Windows, and kids are not growing up learning about computers and how they work. And so we're not creating a world where the people that are aging into that demographic are proficient in any of the stuff it takes to care about PC gaming. And so that, something has to change there. Something has to change to either make PC gaming more friendly, or people need to be more computer literate when it comes to operating a fucking modern Windows machine. Or, hey, maybe Linux actually gets there at some point. But that's the Linux conversation around, Steam and Proton and everything is super fun. But also, like, that's another layer of people going like, wait, what? Okay, so it's pretending it's Windows and I can't play this game because this game needs real Windows, not fake Windows. What the fuck am I doing? Like, you know, like there's just another layer there to confuse people. And people like to pretend that that's not a factor, but it's absolutely a factor. And it's very easy for us to sit in these Twitch chats and just go like, well, I'm going to install Bazite and do this. And I've got Belena Etcher out here and I'm going to fucking do, like, no, man. People just aren't going to fucking do that. People don't want to do that. People want to come home from work and turn on a thing and fucking play a game. You know? They don't want to have to know any of that shit. They should. They should. It would behoove them to learn more about that sort of stuff in ways that I think will improve their existence beyond just playing video games. When you know how a computer works and the different things you can do to fuck around with it, you can have a lot of fun and get up to some fucking you can do some ill shit with a computer. Especially these days when fewer people seem to fucking know how to do ill shit with a computer, you can do ill shit with a computer. It's fun. And you can fix all the things about Windows that you hate. You can go and forcibly uninstall Copilot and all of the other horse shit that Microsoft wants you to use. You can fucking run an ad blocker and block all of the fucking calls to Facebook that all these websites make all the time. You can, there are things you can do to improve your overall experience using the internet because you have full and complete control over the machine. And that's great. It's wonderful to be able to do that. But people aren't going to learn that. People just don't. It's not a priority. And I get it, man. People are fucking tired. They have a lot going on. And so, especially when it comes to video games, they're not going to spend a bunch of time running, figuring out, someone in chat says Tiny 11. No, fuck that shit. Okay, you're telling me I'm going to go fucking download someone else's fucking Windows 11 and they're just going to say, trust me, bro, I didn't put anything else in here. I just took the bad stuff out. You're just going to trust that. You're just going to go, word, yeah, I'm installing that. Fuck that, dude. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. You have to learn how to do that shit yourself. Or be okay with the fucking potential issues, right? Of just like, well, yeah, I don't know. I installed all this stuff and it turns out one of them bypassed this security thing and one of them fucked up this thing and I didn't know what I was doing and now my bank account is empty. It's people just want to come home and play a fucking video game after work. And that's why PC fucking games are fucking ridiculous. But I love it. It's just not for everybody. People get phones and they don't know what a folder, they don't know what files are. They don't know like what there's a file. What music is a file? What is you're these MQAs? What are you doing? What? No, wait, what are you doing? You're converting this to what? What's an ARL? Okay, you're getting up to you're doing something fucking crazy. So you're like we're just that's just what the culture is becoming, and kids don't have to learn that stuff anymore. They have to figure out what a document folder is because they probably have to submit or copy or like I don't know. Like, hey, I wrote this paper and now I need to submit it to a teacher, but maybe you wrote that on a web browser because you wrote it in Google Docs. And so it's even a further layer obfuscated because you're using some fucking dog shit Chromebook or, like it is. And whatever. It's very easy to see how some of this stuff got here. You wish it wouldn't have, but all of these are, I think all of these start to apply to when we think about gaming and we think about gaming on the PC. and all of that sort of stuff. It's why PC games are still too much for some people. Popularity of Fortnite and some of this other stuff, and streaming certainly helps with some of that as well, that they're going to want to jump through some of the hoops to figure that stuff out, but eventually things break and they go, what okay, now I don't know what to do, and so this computer just sits here. If I had just gotten a PlayStation, I could just play Fortnite on that and that would be fine. And I don't fault anyone, and I think that's the thing that a lot of like the PC aficionados try to fucking, like, they're like, well, they should have to learn this stuff. They should jump through the hoops to do this. Like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Yes. People should be more computer literate than they are for their own safety, if nothing else. And that would benefit them in a zillion different ways, including gaming. But again, the world is busier than ever. It's crazier than there's so much happening to everyone all the time now. I am not going to fault anyone who is just like, dude, I don't want to fucking dick around with that stuff. I don't have time. I don't have fucking time for this. And you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah, makes sense. So let's get into the emails. Taylor writes in from Hamilton, Ontario, and says, I watch a fair amount of YouTube on my TV. This isn't new, but YouTube keeps serving me 90-minute to 2-hour ads. Oh, God. Did the camera finally break? Oh, did the camera shut off? What the fuck happened here? All right. Hang on a sec. I got to stand up and if you're watching the video version, the camera probably shut down or broke or something happened. I don't know. I'm going to stand up and walk over here and figure it out. Back on. Set the focus. Hang on. The problem. This is not a good thing. This is a bad thing. I think so. I bought a teleprompter, and now my camera sits behind the teleprompter. Nothing has changed on it. And so I don't know why it's shutting off when it never did before, but it is now covered in a shroud because the teleprompter needs to be like sealed up or whatever, in order for the teleprompter to work. And so I'm reading chat in the teleprompter. And now I'm wondering if this camera is overheating. Because I initially thought it was a problem where, like, oh, the screen was flipped the other way. And so that was a different, like it's a, because the way the screen was flipped, like now it's shutting off after X number of hours or whatever. But like, it's probably overheating. I mean, it's still on right now. It didn't just immediately shut off again, but. Also, I've left this camera on for the past 2 days because now that it's covered in a shroud, I forget that it's turned on. And so I left it on deliberately thinking I would see if it would shut off automatically, and it didn't until now we're recording. And it did that. That's something I can troubleshoot later. I think I will end up troubleshooting it by... I don't know. I got a light that keeps falling off the network because Wi-Fi, because apparently we need Wi-Fi lights now. That's the other end of this, right? Is like, there's the like, hey, we need to always learn how computers work, but then also the technology is getting fucking dumber and shittier all around us. But hey. When it works, it's great. You know, you need the light just showed back up on the network. That means I can very quickly adjust it with this, and I have a few minutes to do so before it falls off the network again. Nope. There we go. Nope. Ah. Ridiculous. Maybe I need to replace the camera. And use the camera in a different way. I don't know. There's a few other things that were weird this morning about stuff. I don't know. It was computers, man. 2:30 in the morning, the fucking network on my server out in the garage just dropped, and I had to walk all the way out there, and I could just run the Windows troubleshooter, and it just like worked again after that. But it was enough to disrupt a bunch of. It's a whole thing. It's a whole fucking thing, man. Computers. I hate computers. Taylor from Hamilton, Ontario writes in and says, I watch a fair amount of YouTube on my TV. This isn't new, but YouTube keeps serving me 90-minute to 2-hour ads, forcing me to reach for my phone to skip the ad. Who the hell is watching 2-hour ads? For that matter, who is making 2-hour ads and then thinking people are going to actually watch them? It sounds expensive. The last 2-hour ad I got was for mining equipment like excavators and conveyor belts. I have a hard time believing some dude who owns a mining company is watching these videos and then like getting jazzed about conveyor belts. It feels like it's just punishing non-YouTube premium subscribers. Yeah, they do this on TV. They specifically, as far as I can tell, they only do this on television, and it's for people that are not there anymore. And it's for so we had for a while there we would put on some YouTube stuff for the kids, and it would be on the TV in the living room, and we would occasionally you'd run into this, and it would be like some 90-minute infomercial about how to invest money or whatever. And so I think that you're hoping that you just have walked away from the TV, or that you're near it enough to like look at it and go like, oh, huh, and still catch the basic information. And it's on for so long that you're obviously going to go skip it at some point if you're there. But if you're not there, you're going to end up seeing it. But like, who's going to pay for ads that are not seen by actual people? I don't know. Yeah, the YouTube is getting aggressive about ad blocking and a lot of this other stuff, and blocking ads on set-top box clients is a whole separate problem to solve. And some people have had success with a pie hole, whereas some people have not. Obviously, YouTube is always evolving. All of this stuff is always evolving, right? The ad block, anti-ad block, whatever else. People coming up with alternative YouTube clients for Android phones and all this crazy shit. Like it's a very interesting time. But yes, I think that's the situation in most of these cases, right? Is like they're thinking that you just put on some stuff for noise and you're not going to notice, but the message will still somehow sink in, which is a really dark thing to think about, I guess. But I suspect it's something along those lines. Daddy Warbucks from Oregon writes in and says, one weird consequence of things like Xbox Live Gold is that my brother and 2 of my friends ended up becoming the main player on the Gold account that the dad created. All 3 of them still use the same gamer tag their dad made when the Xbox 360 came out. Just something funny you may have never encountered as someone who was an adult when all of this stuff was happening. So the other end of that I run into sometimes is there are people that I've had on my friends list for 20 years now, because Xbox Live has been around for 20 years. And so you'll see someone playing a game and go like, "Oh, you're playing that?" And it's like, "Oh no, I don't. My kid uses that now. I don't know." And so suddenly you're kind of like weirdly you are Xbox Live friends with someone's kid because they don't use the tag anymore. You're like, "Oh, what is this? Should I remove this person or like what?" should I get rid of this now, or I don't know. It's weird. Yeah, that's yes. That stuff is kind of strange. Let's see here. Nick writes in, we were talking about movie theaters and digital and digital prints of movies and all of that stuff and employee screenings and I was wondering if that was even possible anymore. Nick writes in to say, recent movie theater employee checking in to follow up and confirm that thankfully we were still able to have plenty of employee screenings of new movies. They were time locked to the weeks that we were showing them, but there was no way for studios to check the number of times a file was run, only the number of shows actually scheduled and having tickets sold. As long as we had a movie for the week, we could put it on any of our projectors and play it whenever. The only things that wouldn't work were the Fathom special screenings, which were streamed in at a specific time. Everything else just got mailed on a hard drive that only needed to be copied over to the theater's server. Digital projectors also made it incredibly easy to bring in other things to plug in, especially game consoles. There were a few years where I'd finish a shift late Thursday night as new Switch games unlocked and play a few hours on the big screen. Mortal Kombat 11's story mode also benefited greatly from the theater experience. The job itself wasn't great and the pay sucked, but the side benefits of working at a movie theater remain unmatched. Yeah, man. Like unless you work at a shitty movie theater, they will just let you take the hot dogs at the end of the night and you can just eat them. Like the benefits of being around a movie theater as it's closing down for the night are manifold. And we could always get soda out of the fountains, no problem. We just couldn't use the cups because they counted the cups. They sold the cups, not the soda. And so as long as you brought your own cup, you could get as much soda as you wanted to. You just could not use any of their cups because that was the thing they kept track of. But man, you get like 2 or 3 of those hot dogs off the rollers at the end of the night. You know, it's like 12:30, 1 in the morning. You are ready for those hot dogs, and those hot dogs are ready for you. Some people were living like they were walking out of there with like trash bags full of popcorn and crazy shit like that. Like that was the stuff that I was like, that's maybe a little too far. I will certainly have some popcorn, but I don't know that I necessarily want to leave with a full bag of it. I don't know that I need that. And yeah, just being able to like watch movies and the movie theater employees, at least the ones that I kind of was hanging out with. I was kind of working for the movie theater chain for a while myself, but not. I don't know. This is a weird situation, but they were film dicks. You know, they were like, you better be quiet in the movie theater. You better be this. You better be respectful for this. And we're gonna sit here and we're gonna talk about Robert De Niro and you're like, yeah, no, this is all cool. Like I get it. Like I agree with it for the most part. But it wasn't like, hey, man, we're going to play laser tag in the movie theaters while the movies are showing. It was like, if we're here to watch a movie, we're going to sit here and watch the fucking movie. If we're going to play laser tag in the closed down movie theater, then we're going to do that. You don't do both. You could get up to some fucking hijinks in a dark movie theater, man. You could, all kinds of fucking weird shit. It was fun. Yeah, a lot of good side benefits. Walter writes in from Annapolis and says, when Steam first launched, it was the only platform that offered super deep discounts on digital games. I'm gonna push back on that, Walter, right there and say when Steam first launched, it was only a place to play Counter-Strike. And like they were selling 2 or 3 other games eventually. Like it took a while for Steam to become a big storefront. Anyway. Example, in 2009, I picked up id Software's complete collection for 85% off. No one else was doing this. There was no precedent unless you count flea markets. So how do you think Valve convinced big publishers to offer such bargain basement prices? Is it possible they subsidized some of these sales to grow their user base? So I don't think that they would have needed to subsidize this, but 2009 is... Steam had been around for a while before we got to the point where the id Software collection was available at that insane... I do remember that. When it was like, man, this whole id collection is up here for like nothing. It's crazy. It is always possible, I suppose, that Valve subsidized some of those sales as a means to grow their user base, but I don't think they had to do that. I think it was more just the economics of like, these games are not selling super well anyway, and so let's put these games on deep discount. I think it was more just run by the publishers and just going like, oh, well, we think that this will work. And we think if we do this discount, then, you know, then people will actually buy these games that they are definitely not buying right now. And I think it's more of that. It's more like, hey, if we do this for a weekend, and it, you know, and I think more and more people learned from that. And learned how that goes when you do that, because you end up in a situation where it's like, okay, we sold X number of copies of this bundle at this insane $5 price, let's say $10, whatever it was. But then more people played those games, more people talked about those games, and we saw a long tail of sales at a much higher price after that. And so eventually Valve would put together a lot, and I mean a lot of data around the right way to sell your games and put your games on sale, and how the Steam audience does this and how it works, and what are the right levers to pull to make this work. Like Valve has an intense amount of data on that by now, right? And so they were able to, you know, through some of these early examples, which is why I say, sure, maybe they incentivized some of those early examples because they knew that they wanted to get into this and thought that it would work. But that's possible. I just don't think that they needed to. I think it was more that like id or Activision or, you know, whoever would have owned it at that point was more like, oh, hey, you know, we're going to do a QuakeCon sale. We're going to do this insane discount because no one's buying these games anyway. Anyone who bought these games already has one, or they've stolen them. So, you know, if we're competing with pirated versions of these games, we might as well just sell a collection for $15 because at least then we'll get $15 instead of $0. And as that started to happen and people started to see success with that sort of thing, they started going, wait, we've got all these back catalogs of fucking weird games. We had an insane, okay, well, shit, dude. And so I think that led to more developers wanting to get their games on Steam and more sales happening. Like it all kind of knocks on to each other, because they start to see the effects of this, and they start to see whether that has a tail after the sale ends, which in some cases it absolutely does. And so I think it's just more a factor of just like regular ass capitalism, and not Valve saying we need to goose this to do. I don't know that they necessarily needed to do it. The thing they ran into is like, everyone has put their games on sale so many times that you have all the crazy shit at all the crazy prices by now. If you were going to buy those, you bought them at the last sale. And so you look for more recent games, and the deals aren't as good on the more recent games because it's not fucking 20-year-old Quake 2 or, you know, or whatever the fuck, right? So, and so the frequent, like Valve has how many different sales a year now? They have like 3 or 4. I mean, way more than 3 or 4. I was gonna say they have 3 or 4 like generic ones, and then you have ones that are more like, it's Tactical Strategy Thursday, and this weekend we're selling tactical strategy games. And it's Golden Week, and so Japanese games we're doing, you know. And so if developers want to opt into that and say, oh, we'll put our game on sale, then Valve says, great, we'll promote you. We will promote your thing because you're opting into this sale. In some cases, yeah, like a publisher will have a sale, and that's probably a little less driven by that sort of thing. But around Evo, a bunch of fighting games will go on sale. I think, they did. There's a big old, Game Awards logo on Steam right now that I assume some games that were nominated at the Game Awards are available at a discount right now. There's always something going on Steam. And so you end up in this situation where you've seen a lot of the deep discounts already. And so they are inherently less impressive because you've had 20 opportunities to buy these games already. And you've probably already, purchased it on a discount if you were sensitive to that sort of price drop. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it all probably works fine, but it doesn't feel special and cool. The early days of the weird Amazon sales sometimes would feel like, oh man, there's actually some cool shit on sale. And nowadays when Amazon is like, we're going to do a second Prime Days sale this year. And you go, all right. And you load it up and it's like, oh, all the same fucking trash is on sale again. This is all garbage. This is all of these items are shit on Amazon now. The Amazon sales are so fucking bad now. And they used to not be. So yeah, I don't know. That's a separate thing, I guess, but it's a similar mentality of maybe some of this stuff goes on sale a little too often I don't think a thing can go on sale too often, but it is less impressive because you see these prices fluctuate so frequently now that it's it's just not as interesting as it was. Carl from Sweden writes in and says, as I write this, the Game Awards are going live in a few hours, and it's been rumored to have some heavy-hitting announcements. This got me thinking about the discussion around E3 and how press conferences don't have a point anymore because you can just announce everything in a Twitter post. However, with the recent strings of big-profile titles underperforming, it makes me wonder if the lack of a proper E3 makes the old-school AAA game get lost in the sea of indie titles releasing every day. Very few IPs have the pull of GTA where they can just upload the trailer to YouTube and everyone watches it. There's also the explosive rise of AI and bots creating tons of junk data online, making it very easy for new announcements to simply get lost in the output of endless content. You think there's a chance the industry will try to return to an E3 style of showcase just to try and separate itself from the sea of indies and internet sludge machine? I don't think indie games are the problem here. I don't think that games are getting lost because other indie games are coming out. I mean, indie games, the big ones certainly, but there's just a low hum of games shipping all the time now, and very few of them get any sort of meaningful promotion whatsoever. There are 9 different games called Unpacking on the Nintendo eShop right now. That's getting into a weird place. So it's in those situations, yeah, maybe. But no, AAA games are not getting lost because of indie games. They're getting lost because everyone is still playing Fortnite. They're getting lost because the audience for those big budget titles, those big mainstream gaming events are, they're out there playing Minecraft. They're out there playing Roblox. They're out there playing, they're out there doing that stuff. And so you can market and you can get out there and they have a marketing budget. What the fuck do they do for Indiana Jones? It was IHOP cups or something, which is I don't know. That sounds kind of cool. I would be interested in seeing some of that stuff. But yeah, no, indie games are not causing these games to. If anything, indie games are competing with each other, and you have sleazy SEO driven name, bad name asset flip indie games that are making it more difficult for other indie games to poke through the noise. That is the struggle, right? It's that, Indiana Jones is a single player game, and the big mainstream sensations right now are big multiplayer games, big social games, and all of this other stuff. And so the level of interest in a game like Indiana Jones, I think, is inherently lower than it was 15 years ago. by percentage. I mean, you could make the argument that more people are playing games now than there were then, but like, the people's tastes have diversified so greatly that it's not as easy to just say like, here's the big game this month and go like, it's going to sell this number of copies because this number of people go out and buy whatever the big game is that month. And this month it's Indiana Jones. And this month it's Madden. And this month it's, Assassin's Creed, or, it's just, this business ain't like that anymore. And, I think some of the players that might be receptive to an Indiana Jones game are maybe playing a big multiplayer or big social game now instead. And maybe they're not interested in that type of game anymore. And that's inherently why you might say why something like Game Pass exists, is because people got used to the idea of like, well, I'm going to subscribe and I'm going to get this battle pass and I'm joining Fortnite crew or whatever the fuck, and GTA Plus, and like, oh, what if I subscribe to this and just got a bunch of games? That makes sense. So yeah, I don't think that E3 actually would dramatically help in this way. Because I don't necessarily think that there are a zillion games that need to be announced in that summer time frame. It's a much smaller number overall. It's more games that you may have already heard about and you're seeing a new level, or you're hearing about it for the first time because I have a hands-on report or a new trailer or whatever, and less pure new announcements than E3 used to have. But that is because the makeup of games that are shipping on a regular basis these days has changed. And so it's not really a... E3 is cool, but it didn't, it wasn't like pulling in eyeballs at a rate that like could make or break a game compared to some of the levers and tools that publishers and developers have now to get the word out about their games. The larger mainstream audience was not watching E3 stuff. They may have been aware of it or whatever, and they may have, word of mouth may have led them to a trailer, but that can still happen. That word of mouth thing can still happen because there are still people like you out there watching all of these trailers and all these events and all this other stuff. So I don't necessarily think that these things are connected. Let's see. Max from Mackinac Island writes in and says, I wanted to make you aware of some leaks that were made regarding some data mining of the new Helldivers 2 update. There appears to be models and artwork of a Hellgast trooper and sniper. I know you talked about Killzone in the past, and considering Guerrilla isn't going to make a new game anytime soon, unfortunately. But would you consider this to be a smart move on Sony's part if it's true, primarily regarding satiating the desires for a new Killzone while supporting a newish IP that has been successful? Sure. I just look at this and go like, oh, that's cool. Like, oh, look at the cool outfits on these guys. Because the Hellgast troopers look kind of fucking neat. And so doing that is like cosmetic, microtransactions or whatever for Helldivers. You're like, oh yeah. And I think thematically a lot of that stuff fits, right? Like, oh, okay, yeah. Let's who would be out there being into fucking super democracy and super Earth and fucking managed democracy and all of the fucking hyper doublespeak? It would be the fucking Hellgast. These fucking fascists. Like, it's a perfect fit for what that game is. So yeah, I don't know, but yes, sure, cool. And if those do really well, then maybe that will lead to a, if assuming that those come out in the relatively near future, assuming if they're data leaks or whatever, then maybe that's something that gives them a little more confidence in investigating the Killzone IP to see if there's anything to be done there. I have my doubts. But maybe. I don't know. Waz writes in and says, what are the top 3 railguns in gaming? Quake 3, Quake 4, Quake 2. Thanks for writing. Miles writes in, this is, I hadn't really thought about this, but Visa and MasterCard have been cracking down on legal pornography for years, leading to several platforms like Patreon and Gumroad and Coffee having to remove creators of adult content. There was a recent story from Japan about Visa refusing service to vendors selling legal pornographic manga, leading to a loss of sales and even the full closure of businesses. How likely is it that this will eventually reach Steam and we can no longer purchase games such as Friends with Benefits and Horny Housewives 2? Yeah, so yes, this is, yes, a lot of the crackdown and you know, censorship of adult content on a lot of these platforms, especially from like individual creators, has been led by credit card companies, because and this is, I don't know that I have the data on this anymore, but traditionally when you are selling pornography or selling access to pornographic content, you are also seeing a higher percentage of chargebacks, because people will spend money on porn and then do a chargeback because they feel guilty after the fact, or, you know, whatever fucking post-nut clarity scumbag behavior they want to go through, where they're like, I'll charge it back, and because it only took me 3 minutes to consume this content anyway. And so the credit card companies don't like the chargebacks. And so in cases where they see higher percentages of chargebacks, they go, oh, wait, we don't want to do this. And so that has led to them, you know, whether directly or indirectly, I don't know, but like it has led to a situation where they don't want to be involved in pornography, adult content, let's call it, I suppose. And so that's made it harder for these platforms to withstand that, because they're like, hey, if you have a certain percentage of chargebacks on this stuff, we're not going to let you take credit cards anymore. We're going to do this. And so it ends up having, you know, like it ends up destroying a business. This was something, there was a brief window where OnlyFans was kind of like feeling it out and going like, I wonder if we could, you know, have a life outside of adult content. They were spending a lot of money trying to attract people to OnlyFans, podcasters and things like that were, you know, not making adult content, because they were looking to diversify and change the perception of their platform. I don't think that really worked for them, and the whole thing sounded extremely fucking shady. Someone I talked to who was involved in that used words like organized and crime for some of that stuff. That was like that made me even more suspect of the true nature of OnlyFans. But they walked that back, because that's their bread and butter, is like, that is what OnlyFans is. And they're not going to be able to fully change that. But like for a while there was like, what, like Fat Joe had an OnlyFans or something. It was just like weird. So yeah, the credit card companies could very easily squeeze this sort of stuff. I guess my guess as to why Steam has not had a problem here so far that we know of, and why they may be able to avoid it, is because Steam already has a pretty robust refund policy. And so a lot of things that might become chargebacks, they are able to, like, people are able to refund directly through Steam. And Steam tends to frown on chargebacks in a way that you would lose partial access to your Steam account. The legality of that, I think, is not, I don't know where the, like, Steam saying, oh, you're going to lose everything if you do one single chargeback on us. Isn't that what Epic was trying to do? And they suffered for that in court. I think that is how, I think I remember it going that way. And so I don't necessarily think that they can get away with that, but you know, this is probably part of the reason why Steam would have a pretty friendly refund policy already. So So that probably sidesteps a lot of this. And yeah, I don't know. That's something to think about, because it's easy to go like, oh, it's just the charge. It's not just the chargebacks. There's kind of a concerted effort, or you get the impression sometimes that there's a very concerted effort out there to try to shut down adult creators and adult content and cause problems on this front. And it's not good. It's not good. It's not good for content creation and just like these platforms in general to have to deal with that sort of stuff. Last question. Ian writes in from Minneapolis and says, what crimes did Frank Provo commit at GameSpot to be assigned almost every subpar GBA review? Some of his highlights include Britney's Dance Beat, Catwoman, Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku, Duke Nukem Advance, Minority Report: Everybody Runs, Star Wars Trilogy, Apprentice of the Force, and Popeye: Rush for Spinach. Frank was our most reliable at that time period. He was my most reliable freelancer, and I believe he was our best paid freelancer, both on an individual article basis and because he was a machine. And so he would come to me or I would come to him, depending on who got to it first, and say like, hey, I can review these 3 for you. I'll probably have them done this week. And I'd just be like, okay, like I had the budget for it. We should review these games. Frank was willing to do the work, and he'd become an expert in that particular field of handheld games that we didn't want to touch. And so Frank just handled all that. He sent in text, he sent in screenshots, he would send in video, I think, if we even needed it. And that would be that. We would just have a steady flow of articles from him about that sort of stuff. What kind of traffic did we get on games like that? I don't know. Nothing. I don't know. I never really spent a ton of time caring about that stuff. It was more like, these games should get reviews, so we're going to review them, and I have the budget to do it. So yes, Frank specialized in that sort of stuff and was invaluable for it. It was great. Frank is easily the most reliable, freelancer I think I have ever worked with, in terms of just like frequency and output and like he was, like I said, that dude was a machine at that point. And we got a lot of reviews. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks everybody for hopefully enjoying the program. Be back on Wednesday and Friday doing some stuff with video games, and Friday we'll rank some 8-bit Nintendo games. That's the all of those videos that I uploaded last week that took forever to like process and upload and everything. All of those eventually snapped into proper 4K resolution. It just took like 3 days in some cases for it to work. I don't know what the hell happened there. And I don't know how long this one will take. Maybe this one will take hours and days to not be 360p. It's a weird thing. But yes. So that's all taken care of. Head over to YouTube if you want to watch me play some Bayou Billy. That got ranked last week. So you can go check that out. That's a jam. Ugh. And I will see you tomorrow. And of course, I will see you next Tuesday with another edition of this very podcast. See you then.